point they were behind with printing the cards. So it was good news that they are actually looking at a new system, at a new card machine, and that they're also looking at extending the validity of your driver's license card. But now we are far down the road and we still don't know where we are.
We shift gear now to some election news. The IEC has confirmed that former President Jacob Zuma's photo will be displayed on the voting ballot beside the name and emblem of the MK party. The Electoral Commission was updating the media on his progress with regards to the preparations towards the May elections. Zuma's picture as an identifier on the ballot comes after the Electoral Court overturned a decision of the IEC to bar him from contesting the polls based on the 2021 jail sentence for contempt of court. The IEC has meanwhile taken the court's order to clarify at the Constitutional Court. IEC Deputy Chief Electoral Officer Masego Shiburi says that it is the leader of a political party that appears on the ballot paper according to its rules.
The party has given us a notice that it has changed its leadership structure. Mr. Khumalo is no longer the party leader. Mr. Zuma is the party leader. In respect of the IFP, while the face of their campaign remains Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the leader of the party is Mr. Hlabisa, and for that reason, only the photograph of Mr. Hlabisa will appear on the ballot paper.
Meanwhile, IEC Chief Executive Officer Saima Mabolo has reiterated the importance of seeking clarity for the Constitutional Court on the Electoral Court's order that former President Jacob Zuma should contest the upcoming elections. Last week, the court overturned the IEC's decision to bar Zuma based on his 2021 contempt of court sentence. The Electoral Commission has approached the Apex Court on an urgent basis to enable it to understand various issues, even if as it will be putting Zuma's picture as leader of MK on the ballot.
Did the Commission go beyond its scope of authority in invoking Section 47(1)(e)? We have no clarity as a country on that aspect at the moment. 2, did Commissioner Love prejudge the issue to extend that she ought to have recused herself? We don't know whether the statement that he made in response to a media question did in fact constitute prejudging the issue. Does remission of sentence amount to the reduction of the sentence as ordered by a court of law?
In other news, the city of Cape Town's law enforcement says they have arrested a suspect who smashed a motorist's windscreen with a chain in an attempted hijacking in New Baden-Powell Drive in Muizenberg. Law enforcement spokesperson Wayne Dyson says officers were stopped by a motorist who informed them that 3 men threw a chain at his vehicle. He says the officers took the victim back to the crime scene and arrested one of the 3 suspects. Lastly, the U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson says the Republican-controlled lower chamber will vote this week on separate wartime aid bills for Ukraine and Israel. In February, the Senate passed a $95 billion package that combined new funds for both countries, but under pressure from right-wing Republicans, Johnson has stalled the vote to approve it in the House of Representatives. Johnson has also reiterated that they'll provide wartime aid for their allies.
Just had a policy conference with all the House Republicans. We laid out the plan on how to finally address the supplemental situation. There are precipitating events around the globe that we're all watching very carefully, and we know that the world is watching us to see how we react. We have terrorists and tyrants and terrible leaders around the world like Putin and Xi and in Iran, and they're watching to see if America will stand up for its allies and in our own interest around the globe, and we will.
Recapping the top story this hour, Outer's Executive Director, Accountability Division, Stephanie Fick, says the delay by the Department of Transport to redesign the driver's license card is concerning. Headlines at 3:30 for SFM News. I'm Dinoma Dau.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Majimbo's targeting Under-17 World Cup as they depart for Colombia, and Maxwell takes IPL break for mental and physical health. More details at 3:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation. Commission. SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
No. I've heard on the radio stations, they're not filling vacancies, there is no money.
No, but that's my question to you. If they don't have the money, will the doctor work for Mahala?
Give me a chance. I'm going to give you a reason.
No. I'm asking you. I need to challenge your position.
No. Nobody works for free.
Right now, the National Pulse is boiling over.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
So I bumped into someone at a supermarket a couple of days ago, and, this person asked me like the obvious, most fundamental question. Ashraf, who are you voting for in the election? Well, being an interviewer, of course, I turned it around. Like, who are you voting for? So this person said, well, you know what? This is what's my conundrum, okay? So the governing party has governed South Africa for 30 years, 6 administrations, and what I'm battling with is, should I give them a mandate for a further 5 years? Because if that's the case, then the answer is easy. Then the answer is, yes, I'll vote for them. End of story. But if the answer is like, no, I don't want to give them a mandate, then I have to think about something else. And that led to a conversation between myself and this person. So my point to him was this, right? I said, first prize is to vote for a party that is totally aligned to your personal vision for South Africa, because it's your vote, isn't it? So what is best for all the people that live in our country, not what's best for a group or a small section of South African society? Well, why? Because it's obvious. South Africa will work best when the benefits of growth changes the lives of all or the majority of its citizens and not just pockets of society. So I did say, well, you know what, to be honest with you, your vision, party vision, it's unlikely that any political party and you will sort of be absolutely in sync. It's not going to happen. So you may not get a 10 out of 10 party. But now, many people will say, well, if I don't get a 10 out of 10 party, then why vote? So what happens if you don't get the 10 out of 10 party? Because you're not going to get it. But really, I don't think you should be doing that. Because your singular vote, when stacked up with other votes collectively, they help to shape the destiny of our country. So whereas first prize is the party that's 10 out of 10, second prize is to be strategic. You may not be in sync with 5 out of 10 things of that party, but you'll see the value of that party being in parliament. You may see the value of that party having a seat at the table. You may see the value of that party in a coalition government. You may see that party serving with really part of the brains trust in the very important portfolio committees. Okay, so be strategic, and that's my advice to him. Whichever party, how big or how small, they will look for a party that will add real value. And honestly, it must have its fingers on the national pulse, right? And if you are still uncertain about that, right, then this is what I suggest you should be doing. Measure, maybe 3-4 parties that you've whittled it down from the 50-odd, right? And look at the top 20 of each party and look at the level of influence that top 20 has on your vision by their actions, by their pronouncements. And that will help you. And look for things in terms of what they've said. It'll help you to fight poverty, to fight inequality, to fight unemployment, to fight racism, to fight indifference, to foster national pride, to find a party that will fight against low productivity and improve efficiency, to fight corruption, to fight those that, that do not want to show up. So look for a party or an individual that you know shows up, okay, and does better. Because really, that's what an election is all about. A once every 5-year opportunity to appoint leaders to serve us, to serve you, to serve South Africa. And if you're still concerned about this conundrum, just remember, you have one vote. Well, I know you have 3, but I mean, in reality, you have one vote. But keep in mind, that party that you might vote for, what's their second vote like? Meaning, if we do not get a party with a 50% plus majority, how will that party shape up in a coalition government? Who are they going to align themselves with? That will help you choose wisely. Well, really, let me tell you, choose wisely, because that's the one single most important step that you can take to help build South Africa into a champion nation. I'm Ashraf Garda, and that's my point. And that certainly is
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to The National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
And indeed, welcome to the National Pulse. I am Ashraf Garda. Great to connect with you and to engage with you from now up to 6 o'clock. Looking forward to it as we cover the issues that definitely impacts on the National Pulse. We'll get your pulse racing, I'm no doubt about that. And I welcome your thoughts. In fact, I welcome your thoughts about the points I just mentioned with my conversation. How do you, I don't necessarily want a party name, okay? But when you choose to vote, how are you going to choose a party? What are the criteria you're going to put into place? Now, you know my views, but you may have your own criteria, whatever that may be. It could be the pastor, but the party with the best posters, you know, the brightest poster, the dullest posters. I don't know. You tell me. You can connect via WhatsApp, text or voice notes 0614 104 107. You can call in 086 000 2032. What I'm keen on is you tell me, how do you go about choosing which party you will vote for? I do not need the names of the parties. Right, let's talk about a really worrisome issue with regard to policing in the Western Cape. In fact, the accusation or the allegation is about police incompetence. Now, there's been a concern, a growing concern at that, that's been expressed that close to 90 gender-based violence, listen to this, 90 gender-based violence cases were struck off court rolls in the Western Cape. And you know why? Mainly because of police negligence. Now, that's according to the Western Cape MEC for Police Oversight and Community Safety, Regan Allen. This happened in a period from April to September of last year. I'll tell you what, I would be very, very concerned. Are you? So let's get Regan Allen on the line, MEC for Police Oversight and Community Safety in the Western Cape. MEC, good chatting to you, and thanks for joining us here on the National Pulse.
Ashraf, it is so vital for us to have this conversation. Like you have indicated, this is deeply concerning. So thank you for bringing us into this conversation.
Right. So, I mean, let's start with this number. So we're not even talking about the total number of cases. We're just saying 90 cases were struck off the roll because of police negligence. That's an amazing number.
You are quite correct, because this will provide us with a snapshot of the entire predicament that we are facing. So currently, we do monitor cases, and we do that specifically not to meet a tick box, but to ultimately ensure that where there's inefficiencies, where docket, Ashraf, is not at court, ultimately leading to a case being struck off the court roll, denying that particular survivor, that victim, the necessary help that they need. It ultimately leads to secondary victimization, and for that particular period, 89 gender-based violence cases were ultimately struck off the court roll. And as you and many of the listeners will be aware, that gender-based violence, including rape, is one of the most underreported cases. And when these happen in our communities, it ultimately leads to a lower number of cases even in future that could be made, because people are already feeling what will happen if I do make a case, because nothing happens. Hence, we are always wanting to ensure that our oversight can lead to better service delivery, and we monitor these court cases specifically to ensure that there can be remedial action and action taken against SAPS officers that are not doing their job.
So give me an example of the type of negligence that's been played out.
Ashraf, how it normally occurs is that there's a court system, and once there is a victim or a survivor, that particular person will go to a SAP station to lodge a case. Once that case is made, there needs to ensure that there is an investigation that is happening. And in that particular docket, there is a number of requirements that needs to be met. That is from a statement being taken. If there's any witnesses, the witness statement must be taken. There's various forms that must also be completed by the South African Police Service. In some cases, there will also be DNA samples and the relevant report that needs to be in that particular docket. If that case is in front of a magistrate and it's not a completed docket, the matter then gets postponed. Now we go into the month number 2. All the relevant documents is again not in that particular docket. It will again lead to a postponement. After a number of postponements, we normally see that a magistrate will either then instruct that particular matter off the court roll or instruct the South African Police Service to ensure that they can ultimately ensure that that docket is fully completed. But it is a huge problem because our detectives, and this is not to give SAPS a free pass, but our detectives on the one hand are so overburdened because of the under-resourcing. They are sitting with a caseload of 250 dockets on average per detective. But still, SAPS members have taken an oath. They are needing to ensure that they actually perform their duties. And currently, we are 20 years behind in the actual amount of SAPS members that we need in our province.
Did you say 20 years behind?
My estimation is that we are 20 years behind. One of the academics at a university told me I am wrong. It's actually 30 years behind because I can paint a picture for you, Ashraf. In the year 2012, at station level in our country, we had 125,000 SAPS members at station level in 2012. What we needed in 2012 was 157,000. Currently, Ashraf, we are only sitting on 105,000, which is less than what we had even in 2012. So the under-resourcing has been plaguing us, and my estimation is 20 years, but like I've said, some academics have told me it's actually 30 years.
Okay, but look, I understand the issue of under-resourcing, but is under-resourcing may apply to a position where police who are called up to help do not come, right? But that doesn't call for negligence, because negligence relates to somebody who's on the job, who's on duty, right? Now, is that something in terms of your role on police oversight? Would those 90 cases, would they fall under your oversight? I mean, what then have you done with those police officers?
Now, we have oversight, so the entire system will still be managed by the South African Police Service. We then make recommendations. We've already asked for those recommendations to be urgently implemented, and part of that recommendations will include that there is a total turnaround strategy, but also writing to the National Commissioner around the amount of SAPS detectives that we actually need to ensure that investigations can actually be concluded. So we have oversight over the South African Police Service, but the entire management sits with SAPS. And as a province, Ashraf, we've been calling for a new policing model where the province can actually have the management of the South African Police Service in our province. And it's for exactly these type of reasons, so that we can ultimately ensure that the South African Police Service becomes a credible and a professional one and serve the residents.
So to confirm, I mean, the Western Cape in particular is a province that is led by the DA. It's the only province led by the DA in the country. But the issue of policing falls under national government, which is the ANC majority. And you're saying that there's a proposal that the DA or the party that runs that province should run the policing services, right? Okay, I get that. That may well come up as a conversation even beyond the elections, right? In the meantime, what has happened to those police officers when you make the recommendations and you pass it on to national government? Have they done much about it?
We have seen consistently that some of the remedial actions will lead to dismissals, some will lead to final written warnings, but some will also lead to a reprimand. So we are monitoring all of those particular cases, considering that we are wanting to send a strong message. Yes, on the one hand, the victim and the survivor must get the help, but where SAPS member has been negligent and where they have not followed due process, there must be remedial action taken. And part of that has sadly, in the SAPS members' instances, actually led to their dismissals.
Which means at the moment, with respect to where you are and national government in terms of police policing the communities that we speak about, and there's a whole range of communities, particularly on the Cape Flats, that have come up in this conversation. Their pulses are racing, their blood must be boiling, and there's just no way, there's no light at the end of the tunnel here, isn't it?
No, it's deeply frustrating. And Ashraf, I think it's very vital to mention that we've done policing the same way over and over since 1994. Here we are saying consistently, our policing needs priorities, and the constitution of the country actually affords our province to submit our policing needs and priorities to national government. We want those reports being taken into account.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. Regan Allen, MEC for Police Oversight and Community Safety in the Western Cape. It's a huge concern. And again, really, and let me just say this up front, it doesn't matter which political party you're a part of. There are people who are victims of violence, gender-based violence, dying, killed, raped, many other things. And those numbers just increase. And really, if any party, part of even national police, can sort this out, that's what we want as a country. After all, we live in this country. It's our country.
Makoti Down Products is a proudly South African family business, started more than 30 years ago with 12 geese and a piece of material. Makoti manufactures duvets, pillows, sleeping bags, and high-quality Egyptian cotton linen. Our down products are suitable for people with dust mite allergies and come with a lifelong guarantee. And we offer a nationwide cleaning service for all your feather and down products. Visit us at makoti.co.za or call us on 041 992 2395. For quality down, Makoti Down.
And we will buy 500 cars, and we will buy 500 more. Just to be the one who buys your car, will come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We buy cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Hi guys, your favorite mom vlogger here, talking all things family entertainment with Deal or No Deal now on SABC2 weekdays at 6:30 p.m. Umalume is trying to make it onto the show and have his life changed quick. Amanda Malume. Mama and I are the #1 Mubango fans at 9 p.m. all week because the storylines stay hot. And my two little people can't wait for May when Raid the Cage kicks off with SABC2. See La Familia, keeping those family bonds strong. Until next time.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Why do you want to stay independent from South Africa? We quite like to have you with us, Mr. Mayor. Why do you want to leave us?
Why should we remain with the Union of South Africa, which was established in 1910, without us being part of it? Why should the natives remain in South Africa that was crafted in the CODESA, where we never had the representation of our monarchies? Tell me, Steve, why should we do that?
Okay,
we need to reconfigure South Africa so that the natives can have their say. Even Chapter 12 of the Constitution doesn't recognize traditional leadership. All it says is that we know you exist.
Palani Mavundla, the mayor of the Umvoti municipality, speaking here as leader of the Abantu Batu Congress.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes, 6 to 9 a.m.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Welcome to the National Pulse. Let's get global now with the Global Watch feature. Several global donors have pledged more than $2.1 billion in humanitarian aid. That's for Sudan, right? Sudan is a country that's been racked by civil war. 14,000 people have been killed, 33,000 wounded in just 1 year, right? But besides the donor funding, what's the big story around this? How do we find solutions to this? What, in fact, is the problem? What do the global donors and their allies do about it? Isaac Como is with me. He's the African Affairs commentator. Isaac, good chatting to you, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Hi.
Thank you. So what do you make? I mean, firstly, it's the donor funding. I take it that's a good thing, isn't it?
Well, it's a good thing. Well, donor funding is always needed whenever there's strikes like what's happening in Sudan or anywhere else, or even in Darfur. So it's a good thing, yeah.
Okay, but Is there a but to that story in terms of the $2.1 billion aid? Is there a but to say that, these funders, and maybe you can tell us who they are, can they do more?
Well, I do not know. I mean to say, as far as they're concerned, they're saying that there are 15,000 people killed, 8.2 million who have been displaced, and even the city of displaced is internal and external refugees. So basically, it's a very big number, and I think it's 1.2. I think it will go a long way, but I don't think it will actually solve the problem for over a year or something like that. Because right now there are problems as far as the food is concerned.
Because, I look at the parallel with the issue of the Palestinians, which is very, very close to Sudan, as you would know. And even there, one thing is donor aid, but if it doesn't filter down through to the people, let's say in that case Gaza, then that aid gets wasted, right? Again, do you know whether there's a channel of this aid that actually gets down to the people that needs it?
Well, I think you've gotten a very good point, because basically the problem with Gaza is that the Israelis are not allowing the food to get through. Now, with the Sudan, food getting through is also a problem, because, they say that the entry points are very few.
How, in your understanding, what is the problem regarding this civil war, and what would be the solution? Do you have any sense of how this will end up? Because you really want to have relative peace in that country, right?
Well, I do not know how it will end up. All wars have got their resolution, and the resolution that mostly either one side gets defeated or there's a peace deal, an understanding, peace treaty. But basically what the war is not really about, people are not aware of what really is driving that war. That war is actually an extension of the architecture of Sudan. Sudan, when it got its independence, the power was passed through a Central Arab, they say a Central Riverine Arab elite, which actually came to dominate the political, and then they also dominated the economic, and after independence they dominated the military. It's the same people, it's the same group of people. And then with this group, it's an Arab, they call themselves Arab, but it's a minority within the old Sudan and the present Sudan setup, as the people in the periphery were mostly, the majority are African. But then with the first thing that they did after independence, that they tried to Arabize the country, tried to force Arab everything, domination on the people in the periphery. And that, of course, was resisted from the south and other places.
But then, is that the primary source of the problem? Because we know that South Sudan, which is...
The primary source of the problem is, I'm coming to it, it's actually the primary source of the problem, it is the marginalization of the periphery.
Okay.
Because you find that the RSF, those are Arabs from the periphery. But that Arab force, it was established by the Central Arab elite to come and put down these other African, marginalized, peripheral African groups.
All right. In 30 seconds, we're going to wrap up. Here's the question then. In terms of the African Union and other multilateral organizations, are efforts being made then to stem this war that's taken place so that it can end?
Well, the African Union cannot stem the war. The war has got to be, it's actually a war of actually fighting for the power. So there's got to be a compromise within the fighting. Outsiders cannot. People are fighting for power. The RSF, basically, although they're Arabs and they're very, very genocidal, they represent a sideline, peripheral Arab force which wants to come and actually be part of the central power structure.
That's where we leave it, Isaac Como. Interesting thoughts, important thoughts. But here's the question in terms of whatever the issue is, can the AU really not be able to stop a war on the African continent? If they can't, then what powers do they have? Think about that. Let's get the news headlines now with Daneo Mataung.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. Good afternoon. Let's take a look at the headlines at 3:30. Businesses and residents of Margate on the KwaZulu-Natal South Coast are reeling from the impact of 2 nights of flash floods in the area. In other news, the IEC has reminded those who wish to apply for a special vote to do so before the 3rd of May. And Outer's Executive Director, Accountability Division, Stephanie Fick, says the delay by the Department of Transport to redesign the driver's license card is concerning. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Marlborough Drive eastbound in Marlborough Gardens has delays towards Northway. Williefontein Road eastbound in Midrand has delays towards Lever Road, and the N1 southbound in Pretoria has a crash before the N4 Witbank Highway. In KZN, the N2 southbound is slow moving at Amanzimtoti. The N2 southbound has queuing traffic reported towards Spaghetti Junction. The N2 in Tongaat has protesting reported. That's near the M43 Watson Highway exit that's causing delays. And the R620 is closed in Central Market due to storm damage. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is slow moving towards Hospital Bend. The N7 northbound has a crash reported just before Postmansdam Road exit. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Krumbum Road exit, and the M3 is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
All right, to me, the whistle is blown. Go ahead.
A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners at home. Starting off with football, as the South African national under-17 team prepares to depart for Colombia today to play international friendly matches, SAFA President Danny Jordan says that this will help to qualify regularly for the FIFA Under-17 World Cup. Now, the world's football mother body recently announced that as of next year, the Under-17 World Cups for men and women will be hosted annually, with Morocco set to host the first 5 edition of the men's the boys Under-17 tournament. However, I'm a little bit worried because now there's a story that is developing that the Under-17 team is actually still at the airport, and the parents are waiting to hear what is happening with the team leaving, because they were supposed to leave today. And from some of the parents, they're saying that the association didn't book the flights for them or for the Colombia trip. So it's still a developing story, and I'm definitely trying to investigate what is happening over there. However, they are supposed to go and play these international friendlies.
In fact, if they don't take the flight, it's not a developing story, just to make the point.
Literally.
Okay,
so we'll definitely keep you up to date with this story. But then, still staying with football, Mamelodi Sundowns head coach Rulani Mokoena has joined a long list of coaches who've been raising concerns about the standard of refereeing in the PSL. Mokoena questioned Jelly Shavani's officiating in their 2-2 draw against Morocco Swallows yesterday, and he says this paints a poor picture to the rest of the world.
It's two things for me. For me, it's South African football. What does it do? Okay, now everybody watches this game. From worldwide, I have people in Europe who watch every single Sundowns game. What do you think they write about South African football? What do you think is their perception of South African football after they see that? So that's the biggest thing. It's not to me. I'm not as important as South African football. The game is going to live beyond me. So what happens to the image, the reputation of South African football? And every week, coaches must complain about officials.
Mokoena has insisted that he'd been silent on the level of officiating this season, but he could no longer hold back.
I haven't spoken about the referees the entire season. This time I will speak, because that is very bad. And that's not a mistake. That, you know, when we make mistakes, it's mistakes, but that's not a mistake. The assistant ref, he puts the flag for offside. Then they consult. Who are you consulting? Who was Jelly consulting? Okay, you tell me who was Jelly consulting. He went to the assistant ref. He stood there. He put the hand. He's talking to somebody. Who is he talking? VAR. You have VAR in South Africa now all of a sudden. And it's the 3rd time this season. Matlati, you must write it. No, Matlati, I'm waiting for you guys to write. It's very sad. And it's also sad for you guys, because now you must focus on things that are not football. So you're going to ask me questions about things that are not football. Are you guys not football journalists?
Well, I've reached out to SAFA and they haven't given me an answer as yet. I will keep on asking what are their thoughts with regards to Mokwena's comments regarding the state of officiating in South Africa. Elsewhere, Atletico Madrid coach Diego Simeone says that he's wary of Borussia Dortmund's strength at home as his side prepare for the return leg of the Champions League quarterfinal tonight. Atletico are looking for their first Champions League semi-final place in 7 years, and they go into this game having a 2-1 lead from last week's first game. But Simeone has acknowledged that the German side's power at home, which could cause an upset or can cause an upset in this return leg. And Dortmund are unbeaten in their last 9 games at home in the tournament, so they will definitely fancy their chances. And if they win, it'll be for the first time they've gone 10 consecutive home games in the European Cup or Champions League without losing. In the other clash of the Champions League, Barcelona welcomes home PSG, and the French side have been boosted by the return of Achraf Hakimi. In Cricket South Africa has congratulated the Knights on their promotion back to Division 1 following a challenging season that saw them relegated. The Knights displayed exceptional performances across all formats, securing 2 final spots and earning themselves a well-deserved promotion back to Division 1 at the conclusion of the 2023-24 season from Division 2. In the meantime, Australia's Glenn Maxwell will take an indefinite mental and physical break from the IPL after struggling for form with the Royal Challengers Bengaluru. Now, the big-hitting all-rounder has scored just 32 with the bat in 6 games and skipped the defeat on Monday in a record run fest against Sunrisers Hyderabad. And he's saying right now he needs a break mentally and physically. Ending things off with the rugby, defending United Rugby Championship champions Munster have brought out their big guns for Saturday's showdown with the Bulls at Loftus, and with 2 weeks to prepare, some of their key players have returned to fitness, including Springbok giant Archie Snyman, as well as Shane Daly and Calvin Nash. They'll be arriving as close to full strength as possible for the fixture. On that note, it is a wrap from my side. I'll have more in at the next hour for SAFM Sport. I'm Dumin Kapele.
And I'm thinking about that clip about the journalists and the administrators when you attack the journalists and say, you must write it. It never ends well.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So I made my point about how you should go about choosing a party that you support, that you'll vote for in the election. What's your point? You tell me. 086 000 2032 to call in. I'll take your calls right away. You also have the option to WhatsApp us in text or voice note form 0614 104 107. And you know the National Pulse, you're on SFM. You can catch us nationwide 104 to 107 and also on streaming live. Just go to the SFM website or even SABC Plus. You'll get there. By the way, tell me where you are as well. Love to do that all the time. Where in the country are you listening right away? Love to know that. In fact, there's a couple of so here's an interesting one from Gomba at Philippine, Cape Town. And this is such an interesting one. Hi there, Sir Ashraf. Why do you call me Sir Ashraf? I love, Gomba from Philippines says, I love Africanism plus communism. If Africans were one, I was gladly going to vote, perhaps. for the ANC. But Africans are so divided, with an S and 5 O's after that, is so divided, burning down and destroying this country as well. On the 29th of May, I might vote for the DA, political party that I don't like at all. There is so much ambiguity and contradictions in your comments. I can tell you now. I'm just making the point. It's so much, right? Okay, there's another one. Okay, I'll just check up if there's another. There's a couple of voice notes. In fact, let's play that.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Ian from Cape Town. If Madonsela had to have a party and her face was on the party and whatever name she would have given it or they'd have chosen, I'd have definitely voted for that lady. Because I've never ever seen a woman who's go so brave and with so much huge respect all over the world without even who hasn't been tainted or even has any form of rhetoric against her, who's blessed and is so well educated. So if she had a party, I would definitely vote her, and she will become my genuine first female democratic South African president. And I thank you. God bless.
Well, who knows what she'll do down the line? But for now, she's part of the Centre for Social Justice and the Law Society in Stellenbosch. So party politics not on her beat at the moment. Maybe the same applies to MTR Suleiman. Remember, everybody has said, the gift of the givers founder must be, well, I'll vote for him as the president of the country. I mean, not me. I'm saying many have said that, right? But I mean, here's the thought, okay? I promise you, if the MTR Suleimans and the Thuli Madonsela stand for a political party, they run the risk of damaging their legacy, but also they run the risk of damaging the impact they make right now. I think they have a space in civil society that is critically important that they will lose if they are part of a political party. Here's another voice note.
April 5th, 2024. Ashraf, good afternoon. It's Mr. Suleiman. Talking about your police force, why don't they get to employ all these paras? These paras, they know how to fight, how to shoot, how to stab, how to rob. So why don't they take all these paras, they're very young boys, and train them to become police force? Thank you.
I'm really thinking about your call, these paras, but you say they know how to shoot and to stab and whatever, and you're saying that's why they must become part of the police. Don't you think all those things would disqualify them? Right. Let's see if there's another. If not, we're gonna get to other issues. You can also WhatsApp us on those issues in terms of who you may vote for, but also the issues around the police service, particularly reference to that conversation I had in the Western Cape. And you may want to pick up on the issue of Sudan, as per my conversation with Isaac Khomo, right? Okay, in fact, here's another voice note.
Good afternoon, SFM and to listeners. It's Sullivan, Governor from Durban. Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. Ashraf, I would like to vote for a party who lives our Pato Pile principles. Basically, our human rights must be respected and honored. Let our people survive, and the party chosen must be able to offer that by giving the youth jobs, because the youth are our future. So the party that's going to come into action needs to concentrate on youth, building our youth up and letting them run this future. And Parliament has to have youth involved because they are the future generation.
Thanks for that, Sullivan. Have you found that party? Here's a question. Have you found that party? Well, talking about finding parties, we certainly know who's going to be on the images on the balance sheet, of the ballot sheet. Did I say balance sheet? Could probably be the same thing, of the various political parties as we lead up to that May 29 election. But an interesting development regarding the position of the former President Jacob Zuma. So let's find out more about it. Firstly, with regards to from the position of the Electoral Commission of South Africa, Masego Shiburi is the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer there. Appreciate your time and thanks for joining us. Welcome to the National Pulse.
Afternoon, Ashraf.
Thank you. So, an interesting development. We'll talk about the other things, but maybe first things first, the issue of the ballot sheet and the issue of now this highly contested terrain of former President Jacob Zuma. What's been the ruling, and give me the motivation around that?
The Commission upheld an objection raised by a private person arguing that the former president was not qualified to stand for election to the National Assembly because he did not meet the requirement in Section 47. The Commission understands that it has an obligation to consider objection to the qualifications of candidates. The Electoral Court has since decided that the Commission acted out of in excess of the powers that it has, And we are yet to make a proper assessment because the court is yet to issue the reasons for its order. But faced with that, the Commission approached the Constitutional Court for direct access and on an urgent basis to get clarification of whether there is a role for the Commission in establishing the qualification of candidates in terms of Section 47, or whether that role ought to be played by any state actor. On its part, the Commission has confirmed the candidature of Mr. Jacob Zuma on the list of MK Party. So the list, the president's name is on the list of the party.
Okay, so first things first. I mean, that process is still ongoing because I know that the IEC has taken those issues to the Constitutional Court. So that's one part of it. But at this point in time, it's on. You're saying his name and his image would be on the ballot sheet.
Indeed, his name has been reinstated on the list of candidates for the MK Party.
Okay.
The second issue is that we have received notification in terms of the scheme on the registration of parties, to the extent that Mr. Zuma is now the leader of the party, MK Party, is now the president of MK Party.
Okay.
We received that notification from Mr. Khumalo, who was up to then the registered leader of the party.
Okay. Now, what happens? What happens then if the Concord rules otherwise?
If the Concord rules otherwise, then we will have to give effect to the ruling. There's two things. The ruling is one, the Concord can only rule on his qualification to stand as a candidate. It can't rule on him as a leader of a party or his name or picture or photograph being on the ballot identifiers for the party.
Okay, that's so interesting. So let's understand this. That you're saying anybody can head up a party, anybody. You cannot disqualify a person from heading a party, but it doesn't mean that person can actually go to parliament.
Our understanding is that for a person to go to parliament, they must be qualified in terms of Section 47 of the Constitution. And we await then the to tell us whether we were correct in the understanding or disabuse us if we were harboring under a misconception that was our rule.
Okay, and then in terms of the image on the ballot sheet, do I take it that the party can put whichever image they want? I mean, I'm just thinking about it now. That what is it? The purple, was it called the purple cow party? Maybe I've got it slightly wrong. In the previous election, I mean, they had that cow, right? So it doesn't have to be an image of a person, right?
Okay, let's take it a step back. When a party applies for registration, it must do a number of things. The first is that it submits its identifiers, which is the full name of the party, the abbreviated name of a party if it wants to register one, the logo of the party, and those are identifiers that are registered with the Electoral Commission. For purposes of the ballot paper, we include these three identifiers on the ballot, but also include the photograph of the leader of the party. And the photograph must be that of the leader of the party on record with the Commission. So if a person is a leader of the party, but if they are not on record as a leader of the party, they can't have their photograph on the ballot paper until they update their records with the Electoral Commission. That is to avoid people putting anything on the space of the photograph of the political party, of the political leader of the party.
So can you remember what I called it, the purple cow or purple party, with Canton Pillay heading it up? Was his image on the ballot sheet, or was it that cow that I can still remember?
If I recall, he had a purple logo with an image of a cow, but he also had his photograph as the face of the party. I think it was a capitalist party. If my memory serves me well.
Okay.
He had both a purple logo with the image of a cow and also his photograph alongside the cow image.
So interestingly enough, I mean, former President Zuma could well be disqualified. Maybe, we'll see what happens. But his image in terms of the driving force of the MK Party will be present in that election, right? Let's move on to one other thing finally. I'd heard this morning that the IEC was saying that I think you guys are like 95% ready to go for all the election issues, right? Including the printing of the ballot sheets. When will that printing date occur?
We in terms of our plan, we are supposed to have started printing the ballot on the 10th of April already. That has not been possible, not because of poor planning on our part, but because there were, until yesterday, 11 court cases before the electoral court that had serious implications for the ballot paper. So in those circumstances, we took a more prudent approach of not printing ballots so that we are not seen to have second-guessed the court. So once the court makes its decision known, we will start printing the ballots. But that time, that window period is rapidly closing.
What is the deadline for you then? The absolute deadline?
We in terms of our plan and the capacity of printing in the country, we had estimated that we need 30 days to print, package, label, sort, and distribute those ballots to the 23,300 voting stations. So we have lost 6 days. Of those 30 days, we are working on plans to recover. What we can assure the South African public is that come voting day, there will be ballots in requisite quantities for every one of us at voting stations.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. Thank you for your time. That's Masego Shiburi, the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer at the Electoral Commission of South Africa. By the way, when was that ballot changed to include the Inkatha Freedom Party on that very first 1994 election? I believe it was like the 11th hour. If you know more, let me know. You can either call in or you can WhatsApp me. I'd certainly love to know. 086 000 2032. You can WhatsApp 0614 104 107. You also tweet it out using the hashtag #TheNationalPulse. Tag SFM Radio on the X platform. You can also tag me, Ashraf Garda. We'll get another take on the IEC position after this.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
I believe it. Levo's been telling my producers, that happened 2 days before the 27th of April, 1994. So all those ballot sheets that were then distributed already to certain districts, they had to stick the ballot sheet stick on the ballot sheet the IFP. And guess where the IFP were placed, therefore, on that ballot sheet? If you know, I know. If you know, was it at the bottom? I thought it was right on top. You tell me, check it out, bottom or top of that original first ever historic ballot sheet. Okay, let's get another thought on the conversation around the IEC with Professor Inseleko Breakfast, who's Insekelelo Breakfast, political analyst and director of the Center for Security, Peace and Conflict Resolution. Prof, good chatting to you and thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. I mean, you probably picked up on the conversation I had with the IEC. Does anything jump off the page here that you'd like to punctuate?
I think as it stands, the issue of Msholozi has not been fully addressed, largely because it has divided the legal fraternity. And because of that, I think it is urgent and it needs to be addressed. And I think the Constitutional Court is a relevant platform to rule over it. Now, regarding whether it can be the embodiment of the party or not, or whether it can be a member of the National Assembly, I think there are some complexities that we need to appreciate, because as your other speaker was saying, that he can be the image of the party on the ballot paper, but that has no bearing. It has nothing to do with whether he can be the member of the National Assembly. And also I was making reference to what had happened in 1994 when the IFP entered into the elections at the 11th hour or at short notice.
And we just Lebo's reminded me now, in fact, that the IP was put at the bottom of the ballot sheet because that was the only place that there was space. There was certainly no space on the top. Okay, that makes sense. Would this give... So let's just say, the issue of former President Jacob Zuma is not resolved. Would the fact that his image would be on the ballot sheet, would that give the MK a significant psychological advantage, keeping in mind that his position, his role within the MK party is very driven by his personality?
Yes, it would, because I think MK is banking on his popularity
to solicit votes on a large scale. I think also the IEC is being strategic and wants to come across to be fair and square, because there have been people who have cast their aspersions on the IEC that, they are biased, or I don't know, they're holding a grudge against Msholozi, or they're entering into the domain of politics. So I think they can find comfort in the latest developments, that the fact that they have submitted an application to the Constitutional Court has no bearing on whether it can be the image of the party or not.
How does that play off in terms of, the most important phrase of all after 29th of May, which is free and fair?
Free and fair elections cannot be judged on the day the electorate have gone to polling stations to cast their votes. You have to look at certain markers. You have to look at certain building blocks. The political environment must be free of threats. There must be no threats which are posing a danger to the freeness or fairness of the elections. But of course, there have been statements that are of great concern that have been made by Umkhonto weSizwe. But I think they appreciate the danger of those statements, because they've removed that guy who made those statements as the image of the youth wing of the party. But I don't think that the upcoming general elections will be characterized by violence, because, there are no elections which are perfect. You know what had happened in the U.S. when the supporters of Trump tried to engage in violence. But regardless of that, those elections were regarded as free and fair. Even the recent elections in the DRC, there were questions that were asked by opposition parties, but still the elections were declared as free and fair. So what I'm saying is, I don't think that there are elections in theory or in practice which are perfect. But of course, I would be worried if, for instance, leaders of opposition parties cannot criticize the government, if the media cannot operate freely. But at the same time, I think at the moment, I have no serious concerns, that there is a danger that is posing a threat to the upcoming general elections. Yeah.
So, that is a credit to South Africa, isn't it? That all things considered, the media can be critical of government, opposition parties can be critical of each other and the ruling government, and vice versa. Those levels of robust debates continue on air, on this show, everywhere else, radio, TV, in different platforms. It does happen in South Africa, and it's a privilege when compared to others, although it's a right.
Of course. And it's one of our strong points as a democracy, and I think we need to build on that. But of course, we have to close the gaps that we have, in terms of some of the careless statements that are made by other leaders of political parties.
Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. Thank you for your time. Most appreciated. That's Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, political analyst, director of the Center for Security, Peace and Conflict Resolution. There's quite a few WhatsApp text messages, and keep them going on the range of issues we spoke about. One is, how do you go about choosing the political party of your choice? I gave you my thoughts that we said that if you missed it, we'll put it up as a podcast. Then the issue about the gender-based violence being thrown out, 90 cases purely because of negligence. What do you make about that one? And then the issue now, that confirmation from the IEC that whatever happens with regard to the Constitutional Court judgment on the future of Jacob Zuma and the election, his image will appear on the ballot sheet next to the MK party. So when you vote, if you're looking to vote for the MK party, if you are, just look for the image of the former president of the African National Congress, and you will find him. Beyond that, lots more to come on today's show, including an update on, in fact, we'll look at lessons from Rwanda with Dr. Padi Lahotla, the former statistician general. He's put together an interesting piece about lessons, 30 years into their genocide or after their genocide. But first things first, it's 4 o'clock. Let's get the news with Taneo Matone.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories. Mobile operations continue in Margate after heavy rains and concern raised over redesigning of new driving license cards. Good afternoon. Businesses and residents of Margate on the KwaZulu-Natal South Coast are reeling from the impact of 2 nights of flash floods in the area. The heavy rains began on Sunday night. 5 people died due to the inclement weather. 3 people drowned when the vehicle they were travelling in was washed away. 1 other person was struck by lightning. The 5th victim fell from the roof when he was trying to stop the water from entering the property. Business owner Brandon Smith speaks to what he says is poor infrastructure and maintenance in the seaside town.
Drainage collapsed and it caused Hunter Stream, which runs from the top of the main road all the way down to the beachfront, to cause all the damage you're seeing here today. Luckily we were on site, so we were able to keep the water from coming into the restaurant, but as you can see behind me, the damage has caused massive issues to our infrastructure as well as to our foundation and the overall support of our entrance area to the restaurant, and that's caused us to have to close business and try and repair.
Still on Margate, Stephen Herbst is from the community-led initiative Tidy Towns that sees volunteers restoring and cleaning up towns on the KZN South Coast. Herbst speaks about how local residents are coming together to get back on their feet.
And we mobilized the community, and the community came together, and in the background over there you can see our team of volunteers, and the community has come out. So, it's in our best interest to get this place up and running and back to invite tourism back to the area. It's the lifeblood of this area, and Margate's the Eiffel Tower of the South Coast. All this machinery that you see here is local businessmen, Tidy Towns guys that are involved with us, and it's all sponsored, including the fuel and everything. It's unbelievable. We live in the best community probably in South Africa, and this isn't the first time this has happened, and it won't be the last. So
we shift gear now to some election news. The IEC has reminded those who wish to apply for a special vote to do so before the 3rd of May. The Electoral Commission was briefing the media on its progress with regards to preparations for the May 29 elections today. IEC CEO Sai Mamabolo.
Applications for special votes for purposes of home visits and voting station visits opened yesterday, the 15th of April, and will close on the 3rd of May. Home visits are intended for those voters who are unable to travel to voting stations, while special votes at voting stations are for everyone who is unable to be at the voting station on election day. Special voting will be conducted on the 2 days preceding election day, which is the 27th and 28th of May.
In other news, ALTA's Executive Director, Accountability Division, Stephanie Fick, says the delay by the Department of Transport to redesign the driver's license card is concerning. This follows Transport Minister's announcement that the new driver's license cards will be rolled out end of the month. The current card printers have been bogged with technical issues over the past few years, leading to breakdowns and backlogs of driver's license cards. The driver's license card has been an issue for years. Fick says the department has not been transparent with motorists on the issuing of the new cards.
Now, firstly, we know that the card machine has given everybody headaches. At some point, they were behind with printing the cards. So it was good news that they are actually looking at a new system, at a new card machine, and that they're also looking at extending the validity of your driver's license card. But now we are far down the road, and we still don't know where we are.
Lastly, a Colombian journalist known for investigating and reporting on corruption has been killed near the border with Venezuela over the weekend. Jaime Vasquez was shot inside a cafe in the city of Cucuta in front of some witnesses. The BBC's Glitsia Sala reports.
The incident happened over the weekend and was witnessed by more than a dozen people. Security camera images posted on local media show Mr. Vasquez, who was 64, running into a busy cafe, followed by the gunmen. They fired several times before speeding away on a motorbike. The journalist had been investigating allegations of corruption in the city's administration and had received death threats. Colombia's Flip Press Freedom Foundation said 104 journalists have received threats last year and 2 were killed in 2022.
Recapping the top story this hour, businesses and residents of Margate on the KwaZulu-Natal South Coast are reeling from the impact of 2 nights of flash floods in the area. Headlines at 4:30 for SFM News. I'm Dino Mataung.
In sports, Box get early rugby championship kickoff and Baba back as captain as Pakistan face New Zealand in World Cup build-up. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The N3 southbound in Alexandra has a crash after Marlborough Drive exit. All lanes are open, but traffic remains slow moving. The N12 westbound in Diepkloof has a crash just before the N1 Diepkloof interchange, and the N1 southbound in Pretoria has a truck crash reported before the N4 Witbank Highway. In KZN, the N2 southbound is queuing towards the Umdloti exit. The N2 southbound is slow moving at Amanzimtoti. South Coast Road has truck congestion reported. That's between the M7 Highway and Bayhead Road, so you are to expect delays. And the R620 is closed in that central Margate area due to storm damage. In Cape Town, Batencross Street outbound is queuing towards the elevated freeway. Main Road outbound in Observatory is slow moving towards the N2 Highway. Footrekker Road eastbound is slow moving through Maitland, and Forest Drive is slow moving through Pinelands. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's talk about e-tolls. What's the state of play there?
1 second before midnight, will officially myself and the minister switch off the e-tolls and making this part of our roads history, and ensure that whoever that was not using or was protesting against e-tolls will start a new chapter of rebuilding our roads as not e-toll, but as ordinary roads that can be utilized by anyone, anytime, whatever moment they want to utilize them.
Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lusufi. So there we are at midnight, e-tolls finish and cloud.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, what is it you want to get off your chest with regards to that's getting your pulse racing about issues that may affect your community and certainly that may affect the country? If there is something I want to know, you can call in right away, 086 000 2032. Otherwise, you have the option to voice note us or text us via WhatsApp 0614 104 107. You can also tweet us, just tag SFM Radio on the X platform, and you can also tag me, Ashraf Garda. Lots to come, including lessons from Rwanda. We'll chat to Dr. Padi Lahotla pretty shortly, and we'll have another take later on regarding the issue of gender-based violence and policing and the oversight or the negligence around that issue. Not quite now. That comes up later on. But as you may have heard in the news, there's been flooding in KZN, and you've heard about Margate in the Cape South Coast, but also there's been not just infrastructure damage, there's been lives have been lost as well. So let's get an update on that issue with Siboniso Mgadi, who is the spokesperson for the KZN Department of Corporative Governance and Traditional Affairs. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to the listeners.
Thank you. Right, give us an update first regarding the state of play regarding the flooding in KZN.
Well, so far we've confirmed 5 people that have passed away. As government, we've been on the ground since yesterday. To today, 2 other MECs, MEC for Economic Development and Tourism, MEC Siboniso Duma, also in the area, just to assess how they're going to assist the businesses and the infrastructure that has been affected there. You recall that 5 of the beaches under Renkonyi municipality remain closed. We know that the South Coast is a tourism hub for the province, and it's quite worrying also if you have facilities such as beaches closed. As a precautionary measure, though, the municipality will close and monitor the situation, and come by the weekend, there are chances that they will be reopened for the public. But we are also assisting the families that have lost their properties, their valuables, providing the disaster relief. We are working together with the fire department as mentioned earlier on that 2 MECs are already there to provide the necessary support from their department, SASA and Home Affairs, Department of Health. They are also with us to assist the people that are in distress.
Do we know much about the 5 people who've died? I mean, who are they and the circumstances leading to their death?
Yeah, well, the three of them were in one car that was swept away. It was the mother, the father, and the kid that was unfortunately washed away their car, and they were declared dead. And the other person was struck by lightning, while the other one was he fell from the roof. He was trying to stop the water that were gushing through the roof, and then unfortunately he fell and passed away. We send our sincere condolences to all the families. KZN Premier Nomusa Dube also joined in and expressed their condolences on behalf of the provincial government and reassure the community that government and various departments will visit the area to offer the necessary support that we do as government and the provincial management disaster center.
And so, I mean, that alone is really, really sad, and condolences to the families. Again, it just shows you how, we as people, particularly I think in rural communities, are so vulnerable to the impact of, climate change, and in this case here, flooding, and how in a matter of minutes, it literally changes the circumstances of families, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they are quite vulnerable. As a Department of Culture, we are rolling out quite a number of campaigns. Last week we had a massive prayer in the area of Pietermaritzburg where we're creating awareness and also praying, because as a province we have experienced quite a number of devastation throughout this rainy season. But also we've noted that April is becoming notorious for such rain and disasters. If you come back to 2 or 3 years back, we've responded to quite a number of devastation. But what we are doing, we are creating awareness, because we believe that some of the fatalities could have been avoided in terms of people acting correctly or according to the weather condition. We advise people not to drive or try to cross swollen streets and rivers, because that has also cost lives in the past.
Okay, regarding then the relief issues, I mean, we certainly picked up the issues of continuous flooding still in the Margate region. I mean, where are we with that? Has the rains at any level subsided, and then the relief being provided? Is it adequate? Does more need to be stepped up?
Yeah, well, the rain, because yesterday we were on alert level 5 Margate or South Coast areas, including eThekwini Metro. But in the early hours, the rain subsided, and then our teams continued with the assessment. But we are expecting quite an amount of rain throughout the week up until the weekend. But we are also, as a department, we get information from the South African Weather Services, which work with us very close in terms of issuing those alerts earlier on, so that we give people enough time to prepare and relocate should there be a need to do that. What we are calling them also to adhere to any warnings that we are issuing out. But today they were able to continue with assessment, and then as they approaching the end of the day, they will be able to furnish us with maybe the exact number of households that have been affected, as well as businesses, and maybe later on the amount that will be needed. But MEC for Kokcha, Bongwe Stolemuloi, has also approached the National Disaster Management Center also to submit this kind of devastation, so that we try and mobilize the resources and the funding that will be required to repair, particularly the critical public infrastructure such as roads, bridges, and water infrastructure that has been damaged.
And lastly, besides maybe the support from Kokta's point of view, is there a need for others, NGOs, relief organizations to come and assist, or has that been adequately covered?
Yeah, well, I must firstly start by saying that we do appreciate the kind of support that we've been receiving from our social partners. These are non-governmental organizations that they voluntarily come and assist us in terms of providing disaster relief to families in distress, and also continue with the search and rescue in cases where people gone missing. We've had a lot of their support, and we've managed to save many lives and rescue so many people, and also try to find those that are missing to help the families to find closure. So we really appreciate them, and then we also encourage those that want to come forward and assist, they are free to do so. They can contact any disaster management center in the municipality where all of our disaster centers operate and offer the kind of support that they need.
And they will clearly know where to get to, I'm sure of that. Thank you for your time, most appreciated. Let's hope the issues subside and those that need help will get the help they need and a sense of normality can then take over, notwithstanding the fact that 5 people have died, and that's really, really sad. Siboniso Ngada, the spokesperson for the KZN Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, we'll get an update on the Senzo Meyiwa trial, the murder trial coming up pretty shortly. But there's so many voice notes around many issues. So let me pick them up. Nguzo saying, I'll vote for, is a text, right? I'll vote for social justice, for a political party that will prioritize my safety and deal decisively with violent crimes. 1, death penalty for murderers. 2, life imprisonment for corruption and convictions. 3, life in jail for rapists, drug dealers, human traffickers, without an option for parole. That's from Nguzo. Now, does any party at this point in time call for death penalty? Just, we know it's not constitutional. I'm just not sure if anybody does that at this point in time. Let's see, there's another one. I will not vote DA when I need help. They said they are frightened for the ANC. It's their word. I must vote DA. Never help me. It's so cryptic. I'm really not clear what you're saying, but I get a sense of it. Thanks. Please put your name as well, so we know exactly what you're talking about. I'll pick out some of the voice notes as well. There's a range of voice notes from around the country that has certainly got me thinking. Yeah, they are.
Good afternoon, my very good sir. It's Mlungi Silala from Durban. No, I think it's very clear and simple and straightforward, we need change, and one needs to vote on the basis of the manifesto, of course. Going through the manifesto would guide one how to vote, because indeed we need change in South Africa in totality. I thank you.
Okay, that's one, certainly making a point about the manifesto. Well, here's the question. I mean, do you read the whole manifesto? I've made the point before that I think, honestly, if you get a 10-point plan on a sheet of paper about what that party believes in, and maybe 3 paragraphs for each of the points, that's it. Okay, that's a mini manifesto. I get that, okay? But how important is that manifesto and the vision of that party in helping you decide you're going to vote for them, or is it driven by personality? You can call in. I want to have this debate with someone about personality or manifesto. What is the bigger telling point in choosing which political party you can vote for? And if you have an opinion and you really want to come on and talk about it, 086 000 2032. Here's another voice note.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and the listeners. I'll vote for the party that preaches fairness. Fairness, that's all. No bribes, no nepotism, employment, that's all, Ashraf.
That's it. Fairness. Start the fair party. That's what I say. There's a couple more. Another text. I'm starting to be afraid why it seems like the IEC, they're on the side of the ANC to defeat that Zuma, should not participate in this coming election, from Amalia. Why do you say that? Just tell us why you say what you say. Here's another voice note.
Hi, Ashraf, and your team and beautiful South Africans. It's Eddie from Ondal Stress. No, you know what? I'll be voting for the ANC because of the renewal project, and which is visible, because those who were defacing the ANC are now out there. They have opened their own parties. But I'm telling you, if this one will disappoint me in this coming 5 years, I come next elections, I'll decide otherwise. It's a renewal project that is really convincing me, that in the new 5 years, in the new coming term, things will be much better. And if not, then I'll knock next door. I've even convinced my family to say, let's give the ANC the last opportunity if that will be the case. Thank you.
All right, there we are, Eddie from Odendaal. In fact, Eddie, I used to chat to you a lot in my previous iteration as a talk show host on SFM Radio. By that time, there was less voice notes, more live calls, right? Talking about live calls, let's go to KZN. In Ntantla on the line. Hi, Ntantla, hi.
My brother Ashraf, how are you and your listeners?
I'm very good indeed. You seem motivated, right? Sounds like it. Tell me.
You see, my brother, to be honest, I'd never voted. And my reason was all along, ANC had failed us as black people. I grew up in the rural areas. I had to immigrate to urban areas to seek for better life. And still, when I got into urban areas, the opportunities, they were very skin-faced. For us to prosper as a black person in South Africa under ANC phase, it's very disappointing. When you look at equality in faith, the equality of life that you get to live, we still see, I see ANC as a black apartheid party in faith, because it had failed to change the status quo of the National Party.
So hold it. You say you haven't voted. Did you say you have never voted?
Honestly speaking, my brother, I never voted.
Okay, so why don't you vote for another party then? You don't have to vote for the ANC if you don't want to.
You see, this time, I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote either EFF or MK. I'm still not happy about the things that they're going to do. But the fact that the ANC has been in power for too long.
Okay, so we know why you're not voting for the ANC. Hold it, in Tlantla. We know why you're not voting for the ANC. You've made the point. What would convince you to vote for? You gave me two parties. What would be the factor that you would look for to convince you to vote for Party A versus Party B?
You see, Ashraf, we can't deny the fact that land is equal to wealth. And without land, you got no wealth. And the issue of land and the issue of ANC using the 1961 compensation issue of Act 31, Section 12C, that unregistered landholders need to be compensated. I do not understand why we're still talking about the issue of compensating the people who have stolen the land.
Okay, let's leave it at that. We need to move on. So you've got some thinking to do ahead of May 29 and make a decision as to who's going to get your axe in this case here. Thank you for your time. That's it. Ntantla from KZN has got two choices, so he says. Let's get an update on the trial we've been following for a long, long time, in fact, but it's an ongoing trial, the Senzo Mayiwa trial, after this.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Certainly, my understanding in terms of an update on that trial, the Senzo Mayiwa trial, the murder trial is adjourned until tomorrow. That's for the testimony of the cell phone data analyst. Now, cell phone data analyst Gideon Gous, who downloaded the contents from a phone allegedly found in possession of Bongani Ntanzi, briefly took the stand at the High Court. Ntanzi and four others on trial for that 2014 murder of the Bafana goalkeeper, captain. The cross-examination action of the ballistic expert Chris Mangena has been set aside for the 20th of May. Remember, we spoke about that, I think yesterday it was. Let's get more on what happened today with Pearl Magubane. Pearl, hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to the listeners.
Thank you. Right, so you've had my intro. I'm sure there's more you want to add to that, right?
Yes, well, let me start with the ballistic expert evidence. Well, the judge had given the defense and the legal aid board time to come and explain the matters of the fees with regards to the independent ballistic expert that they needed to consult with. Well, we had a representative from the legal aid board saying that they received the request, but they're still waiting for the full cost and quotation from the experts so that they can settle those fees. So that part, in terms of cross-examining Chris Mangena, who is a very key witness for the state, he happened to have linked a gun that was found in possession of accused number 3 to being the murder weapon, the actual gun that was fired when Senzo Mayoa died. So he's only going to be cross-examined on the 20th of May this year still, because they need to sort out those costs. So today we moved on to the cell phone evidence from yesterday, which commenced from yesterday, evidence that was broken down by one of the investigating officers, Officer Mohane, who said 2 cell phones were found in possession of the accused, being accused number 5 and accused number 2. So the main focus today was on accused number 2, a cell phone that was seized from his cell on the 8th of February 2021, and this forms part of evidence that the state has gathered.
Okay. And anything else that you want to bring to our attention?
Yes, we only had... they were just trying to explain the chain of events, the chain of evidence where it went through, that after they found the cell phone in the cells in Valeria, it was handed over to Thabo Lawrence Ndlovu, who is a digital forensic expert, and he explained that it was hard to crack the code and to download some data. However, he did manage to do that and downloaded all the information onto a compact disc. Now, that disc was sent through to another cell phone analyst who happens to be Gideon Host, who took the stand briefly. But we are told that Host took over from Colonel Stein, who testified last year about some of the content that linked several conversations amongst the accused and, accused number 5 as well, that they were in contact with each other. Now, Stein has since retired, and Host is supposed to take over the work that Stein has done. And all the defense wanted today was a supporting affidavit and any amendments to be backed up, saying that, if Stein, they're expecting Stein, and if there's a new person, they just need supporting affidavits. And then he can continue to break down the contents of what was found in that cell phone that allegedly belongs to accused number 2, Bongani Ntanzi.
And that's where we can leave it. We will certainly follow that story, as you certainly are doing. Pearl Magubani, thank you for your time. Much appreciated, right? There's another WhatsApp. Ashraf, can you one day look at the funding of postgraduate students by the NRF? Students are going hungry, being kicked out by landlords. I think we've covered that to a degree with ANSFAS, if that's what you're talking about. But yeah, it's an issue that once they graduate to get into a university from school, then what happens next? Tommy Noveni is with me from Greyton High. Tommy?
Yes, Mr. Ashraf, how are you?
I'm very good. Good to talk to you.
I hope you're keeping well, yes. I want to raise one issue that in terms of the Constitution, we expect the court to assist the society. But seemingly, the Electoral Court has plunged the nation into a crisis. I'm saying that because you must be able to say, how did you arrive on your conclusion? Because the constitution of our country is the supreme law of the land.
But you're referring to which one? Just tell me which one are you referring to, which issue?
On the issue of whether JZ does qualify to stand or not.
Okay.
They issued the order without providing the reasoning of the court, and that is problematic.
Okay, I think it's an important point to add. Number 2?
Yes. I'm saying that they are violating the principle called legal certainty, which means that for us as citizens to respect the law must be transparent, and the law must be predictable, and the law must be consistent.
Okay, well,
And again, the former Judge President Mkhweng said, all of us must be accountable. All three arms of the state must be accountable, including judiciary.
Okay.
Judiciary must account when they give judgment. So right now, the reasoning of the court is still in the black box.
Okay, let's see what happens.
They want to go to the media. They issued a statement, they issued the order. They are not telling us when are they going to give us the judgment. We were interested
What is the judgment? And there's already an appeal to that, so let's see how that plays out. That's your point. Thanks for that, Tommy. Appreciate it. I'm sure we'll chat once again in the future. Tommy Ngobeni, right. Let's get the news headlines now. It's 4:30 with Dineo.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. A very good afternoon. Let's take a look at the headlines at 4:30. KwaZulu-Natal MHC for Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Siboniso Duma, says preliminary reports indicate that the damage caused by this weekend's flash floods in Margate is estimated at millions of rands. In other news, the leader of the African People's Convention, Themba Godi, has expressed his confidence in the partnership he has formed with the Beta Residents Association in Bushbuck-Ridge, Mpumalanga. And visa-free travel is on the rise in Africa, with Malawi the latest country to ease restrictions. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Hoos.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange, and the N1 southbound in Pretoria has a truck crash reported before the N4 Witbank Highway. In KZN, the N2 southbound has taxi protest / go slow towards the Sibaya Drive exit, causing delays. The N2 southbound is slow moving at Amanzimtoti, and South Coast Road has truck congestion between the M7 highway and Bayhead Road, so you asked to expect delays. In the Eastern Cape, on the R394, protesting reported at Papeni. The roadway is blocked, so you asked to expect delays and diversions. In Mpumalanga, the R536 has protesting with community unrest between Hazy View and Kruger Gate, so you asked to expect delays and diversions there. In Cape Town, the N7 Jakes Harold Drive southbound is queuing at Voortrekker Road. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is queuing towards Hospital Bend. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 southbound slow moving towards Racecourse Road, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards the M5 Kuburg interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Doesn't look like sports people get any rest whatsoever. Springboks are back in action to me.
They're back in action, and we now know that they're going to have an early kick-off when they start off in the Rugby Championship. Their opener against the Wallabies will get underway in the morning of the 10th of August, and that'll be around 6:45 a.m. South African time, while the test in Perth will start at 11:55 on the 17th of August. Now, the Springboks' home test matches against New Zealand in Pretoria and Cape Town, and against Argentina and Bombela will get underway at 5 p.m. SA time. Meanwhile, away test against...
So we've got 3 months to set our alarms, 3 or 4 months.
Yes.
Okay, got that.
Yes. Meanwhile, the away test against Los Pumas in Santiago will kick off at 11 p.m. This year, the Rugby Championship will return to the 12-match mini tour format following an abbreviated tournament in 2023 due to the World Cup in France. In cricket, Baba Azam makes his return as Pakistan captain in a 5-match T20 series starting Thursday against an understrength New Zealand, with the World Cup weeks just away. And Azam regained the captaincy last month in a shock U-turn that ended the short-lived reign of Shaheen Shah Afridi, raising fears of a rift between the players. Head coach Azhar Mahmood says that the T20 World Cup in June in the United States and West Indies is very much on their minds. In football, Morocco Swallows head coach Moussa Nyatama has admitted that his side has not yet won the battle for survival in the DStv Premiership. This is despite salvaging a point against lock leaders Mamelodi Sundowns last night. Now, Swallows don't play again until the 28th of April when they travel to Bombela to face TS Galaxy, and Nyatama wants to see the same fighting spirit his charges put up in getting a crucial point against Sundowns.
We always say to these players they must be consistent in terms of their performances. So it is given. They are professional footballers. You cannot take a Tears Galaxy game and say, no, we won't put 100% effort. So they need to put 150% in the next match. If that was 120, it's not enough. They need to put 150 effort into the next match.
And if you didn't know, the African Football League will now be the #1 club competition in Africa. The CAF Champions League will be second, just as the Confederation Cup used to be, but this time the clubs will be increased. The AFL will start next season, where the winner will represent Africa in the 2029 FIFA Club World Cup, and the points will be credited for CAF club rankings. And if you qualify for the Africa Football League, you can't take part in the CAF Champions League. In terms of the South African teams that are guaranteed participation in the AFL so far, it's Mamelodi Sundowns and Kaizer Chiefs. Where is Orlando Pirates?
What's your? I mean, I'm a bit naive here. So African Champions League, we know, right? But African Football League, I mean, how does that differ then?
It's a new tournament, and they're basically taking the top. Now they're going to take the top two teams in the leagues in Africa, and they're going to compete against each other, and obviously they make more money.
But in a league format or a knockout format?
In a knockout format, yeah, in a knockout format.
So the Champions League is going to be like the Europa League, if I want to call it that. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Well, then ending things off with athletics, Beijing authorities are currently investigating Sunday's Beijing's half marathon after footage shared online showed 3 African runners appearing to slow down near the finish line to allow China's He Jie to overtake them and win. So basically the video showed these 3 African runners waving He, who was slightly behind them in front, and gesturing towards the finish line. All 4 had run together for the entire race of just over 21 kilometers, and He won in a time of 1 hour and 3 minutes, a second ahead of Ethiopian Dejene Bigala and Kenya's Robert Keta and Willie, who all tied for the second place. And I found that video very interesting because you can clearly see how these 3 athletes considerably slowed down for their friends, because after the marathon they were like, this is for their friends, and now a lot of people are just like, this is strange. I actually found it very strange. However, distance running is very popular in China, but there's a history of cheating and poor organization. And I mean, just back in 2018, the Shenzhen's 2018 half marathon had 258 participants caught cheating. Most had taken shortcuts, while some wore fake bibs and others were imposters. So cheating is a thing when it comes to marathons. Just last month, actually, Comrades Marathon said they are banning over 50 entrants because they lied about their qualifying times.
Okay, wow. But in this case, I mean, so who would have cheated here? What I'm saying is, did the Chinese runner run the full race?
They're still investigating that.
Because if he did, he's not cheating. Then did the African runners run the full race? The next question is, if they stood at the end and allowed number 4 to be number 1, then they basically accommodated him. Now, is that
they
cheating?
did.
But is that cheating?
I don't think it's cheating per se, but I found it very interesting. And if you listen to the interviews after the race, one of the athletes was saying, I just wanted to do my friend a favor.
Oh, goodness. Look, it may not be cheating, but it's nonsense. I mean, let me just, there's no other way to say it. Just... No. If you want us to watch sport and really enjoy sport for what it is, just don't do that again, okay?
Thank you very much. I'll be back next hour for SAFM Sport. I'm Dumin Kapele.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the markets with Paswane Impatlele, the Senior Portfolio Manager at Markweb Fund Managers. Good chatting to you as always. Let's talk what first up, Purple Group returns.
Hi, I'm Shima to all your listeners. Hey, we're looking at Purple Group. These are guys that are known famously to own easy equities. The guys have returned to profitability. That's seen investors very happy, as it reflected some of their resilience amongst a very challenging period. And this was thanks to some of their operational efficiencies, like reducing their costs, client engagement, and having to introduce the Thrive costs that will help sustain their profit, their revenue line. I mean, like ultimately, when we get together, their group revenue was up 30%. And this has helped the guys move from a loss to a profit of 10.9 million, reflecting some support coming from those operational expenses that had declined. And just looking quickly to that easy equity platform business is a key driver for them. It recorded revenue up 35%. And more notably, we've seen client assets have increased by 20%, reflecting the rebound in equity markets. And active clients have increased by 12.5%, reflecting the client trust in the platform. And when you look out to their new innovations or building of their ecosystem, they bring up an Easy Trade subsidiary or Easy Retire. And that is the guys are looking to build an ecosystem that would have a very bright future for them if all goes well. The stock was highest up 29%, but it has retraced to 18%. Ashim.
An update on local and global markets?
We're looking at China's economic reports to start off. We started off with where China reported that the GDP was better than expected, up by 5.3% from 5.2 in the previous quarter. Despite this good update from them being on a beat, there was some sense of uneven recovery, especially in the likes of retail and industrial output, and this gives a sense of concern for investors that the government needs to continue with some stimulus, especially in those key areas. But when we look at the general global markets outside those developments, it's still a risk-off mood from the equity space. Momentum we have been seeing is still on the downside, and this effect of more reports are coming in to continue to point to a rebounding growth globally. We've seen the IMF coming today with their report. They forecasted global growth to go higher by 3.2 from 3.1, but this is at the back of the US getting all the gains because of their spending, but those spending is coming out evidently with a risk of inflation that they will be importing to the rest of the world, because right now we're talking of about a different inflation picture compared to last year declines, and that just means higher for long environment for the developed markets, but also here locally in our emerging markets. As we know, we are all interconnected, and this raises a higher volatility to be expected because there's still worries around the micro picture and some geopolitical developments with Israel possibly coming in and attacking. But generally, we see the markets are more of a safe haven trade. Dollars up, gold is still getting some sense of support. Yields have sold off. We've seen the U.S. markets that have opened marginally higher, with the Dow up 0.3, Nasdaq up 0.1, S&P was flat trading currently. European markets, the FTSE is down at hashing 2%, DAX and CAC down 1.5. Locally, our JSE is down 2%, as our resource counter was down 4%, industrials down 1.7%, financials down 1%. Into the commodity space, some Red Sea there, gold is down 0.5 at $2,370 an ounce, platinum down 1.2 at $972 an ounce, oil down 0.7 at $89.70 a barrel. The rand is showing some weakness against the dollar, which is stronger today. Rand against the dollar is at 19.01. Rand against the euro 20.23, and rand against the pound is 23.65. So uncertainty and a risk of day in the markets.
Okay, that's it. That's the updates. We'll have another market update coming up in the next hour. Thanks for your time, Paswani Impatlele from Markwe Funds Managers.
The cost of living crisis is real. Here's what one OUTsurance client did about it.
I'm Amy. I'm 26 from Kenilworth. When I got my 2022 Ford EcoSport, the immediate thought was to phone OUTsurance, and I pay only 819 Rand per month. No insurers were able to beat or match the premium that I'm currently paying.
Want a car insurance premium that will blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote and to find out about included benefits like panic assistance that sends the nearest medical or armed response unit to you wherever you may be 24/7. Here's Yusuf.
45 years old from Tygeral, Western Cape. I pay 700 Rand for my Polo 1.6 2021 model. If you haven't called OUTsurance yet, definitely get in touch.
Give it a go. SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. OUTsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
For the first time in 30 years, the ANC is set to lose its majority. Opposition parties have united as the multi-party charter for South Africa.
A strong democratic alliance with a proven track record
can anchor a new government that serves the people.
But a new government that works is only possible if you vote for it. Let's unite and rescue South Africa. Vote DA.
This political party advertisement was paid for by the political party concerned. The views expressed in this advertisement are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
For over 40 years, people around the world have been spinning and winning thanks to the Wheel of Fortune. Now it's your turn to take the prize as this legendary game show finally launches in South Africa weekdays 7:30 p.m. on S3, plus an omnibus Saturdays at 10:30 a.m. with rebroadcast on SABC2 9:30 a.m. Don't miss your chance to be part of history. Enter now on www.wheeloffortunesa.tv and let the wheel decide your fate. Channel your inner wordsmith on Wheel of Fortune on S3. Open up.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
Let me ask you this. Okay, so you don't believe that you should be auditioning to be in a relationship, but are you the marrying type, the relationshiping type?
I want to be a wife.
Okay.
So my issue is that husbands are rare. Like you get into a relationship and you like completely all wifey and you realize that this person just doesn't deserve all this energy and all this care from you.
Okay. I never would have expected it. You know, I saw a post. I'm not getting into relationships just to get into relationships. I'm auditioning a future husband. And ladies and I was like, no, let's not audition.
Nah, guys, look, decide. Either you're not dating until you figured out your life, or you are being in a relationship for the purpose of marriage.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So, where are you listening to the show from? Is it, are you in Margate, as we've discussed in the news? Are you somewhere close by, like Port Shepstone? Are you in Welkom? Are you in Kroonstad? Are you in Johannesburg, Durban? Where are you? So, well, tell me, let me know. Just text me, probably the best way. You can also tweet it out, as Ayanda Sodawa has done. He said, good afternoon, beautiful people. Happy Tuesday from Hout Bay in Cape Town. Get some fish from me, okay? Just so that you're in Hout Bay right now. Brian and Mabaya saying, my question is, if doctors and teachers with essential skills are not employed in our government with shortages of staff, what is the reason for political parties' manifesto to talk about jobs, as they're also failing to save even the post office? Well, you see, that's the question, jobs for all. How quickly can that materialize is something to consider, right? Thanks for that message. Let's get another. We go to Harry Smith, in fact, but let's call her hi.
Hi, my bra.
Yes, my bra. Who are you voting for, my bra? Or how are you going to choose? Tell me.
No. You don't need even to ask, bra. I'm voting for ANC.
Okay.
It's obvious for me. So, and I'm pleading even to you, bra. Let's go and vote for ANC. It happened. Whatever happened, it happened for the reason. But we are happy because those who let us down, they are no more there. They are now opening their parties. Now they're gonna let them down. We are happy, and I'm pleading. Next vote, ANC is gonna win again. Thanks, brah.
All right, so there we are. So what more can I say? I mean, Sokola has decided, and he's pleading with me also to vote. It's been done and dusted. I can't argue with him, can I? I can't challenge him. It's done. But the essence is going to give them a chance again, and it's an interesting one in terms of my point to be made earlier on in the conversation. Do you give them another opportunity, or do you feel that they don't deserve another 5-year mandate? It's an interesting one in terms of where we sit in the country. But you can make your own choices, okay? Duma from Guyana. Hi, Duma.
Hi, sir. How are you?
Yeah, good talking to you. Very well. Go ahead.
No complaint. I got two issues. I got two things to mention here. Actually, I'm going to start by voting issues. I am definitely voting for NK. The NC has nothing left to offer us, to be honest. We can be in denial and all that. We were all NC before. We know what NC was like. right now, ANC doesn't do anything for black people. Okay, for us. For everyone, actually, I'll say that. You see, we see things happening, but we're still in denial. We still think that ANC still has something to offer. I think maybe if they can change the leadership and all that, and many of them in parliament and wherever, you see, it can be better.
Okay, so you've told me you're not voting for the ANC, and I get that, but you also said you will vote for the MK. So what is it about that party that so convinces you that they deserve your axe?
You know, I was listening to this podcast of let me just say the interview of Andile Mngxitama, that guy for BLF.
Yeah.
You see, I got it from Penwell Show, the Black Pen. I think you know him. But he was interviewed by this boy. What's his name? This guy, something Welsh.
Well, I've certainly had many chats with Andile on air and off air, but go ahead. What's your point?
Yeah. Sizwe Mpofu, Welsh was the one who's interviewing.
Yeah.
The interview opened my eyes. You see, it opened my eyes in a way that I saw the reason why, what was happening and everything, and that he was against the wall. That guy, like everyone didn't see that before. Zuma was against the wall, and he was all alone in that war with the Guptas, for instance. You see, maybe that way. But that was done because he was trying to liberate the black child.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
All right.
Yeah. And the second thing, another thing that put a nail in this coffin of the ANC for me was what the president said right now to this child that said she doesn't have a job. She went to school, but she doesn't have a job. You see, as a father of the nation, as a person who's promising people jobs, understand that I'm going to create jobs. I would have said, you know, right now we're busy trying to make sure that everyone's getting a job. You see, we're busy trying to create more jobs for people. Please stay focused and make sure that you send your CVs wherever you can, and yeah.
Would you have put your arm around her? Just quick one. I need to go. Would you put your arm around her if you were the president?
From the beginning, actually.
Okay.
For the first came to me. She recognized me as the president, as a father. I would have said, my child, you know, I would have done all those things, anything that came into my mind.
Duma?
But anything discomfortizing and all that.
Duma, gotta go. Thank you so much. Interesting one regarding the president and the person looking for a job. And he said, you know, keep on trying, or something along that line, isn't it? Right. Let's get to, well, in terms of elections, there's a big focus on the election watch going up to May 29. But South Africa's having an election. But what can we learn from what's happened before and going on now in Rwanda? Party Lahotla with me, former statistician general. That tag doesn't go away, Party. Good chatting to you. Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Much appreciated. I was wondering when am I going to talk to you, but anyway, today's day one. Right. You've put together a piece around lessons from Rwanda. What are the lessons for you?
Well, I mean, the coincidence of our birth with Rwanda is a striking one because in 1994, they seem to have been where we are ourselves in 2030. And they are more or less where we were in 1994 in terms of being hopeful, looking into the future with a greater zeal and evidence of being hopeful. They've done much better, a lot more. They've been focused, emerging out of a worse situation than ourselves as South Africa. It's almost cheese and chalk. Now, perhaps we have to ask ourselves, is there something that we should learn from Rwanda, that we should emulate? Because we are facing a precipice. In our implemented scenarios, 2018, we argued that the implemented trust argued that South Africa is in a Gwara state.
Mm-hmm.
In the next set of scenarios, South Africa 2035, we are seeing a precipitation and a drifting downwards in that Gwara state to a vulture nation. So, if you were to look at all this, we are almost, minus the genocide, where Rwanda would have been at the time we were hopeful and where the world had actually abandoned them.
Okay, what then did Rwanda do that we should do now?
I'm inspired by the depth of understanding themselves. That's one is. Starting with brooms and cleaning and ensuring that the country is clean. Using brooms. Brooms are made of grass, and it doesn't take a lot to cut grass and have a broom. But it takes a lot of depth of understanding of your tragedy to deal with that broom to move forward. So a symbolic cleaning of Rwanda happened. The second thing that they did, they really focused on what is it that they have to do to make Rwanda rise. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they did, and we were a Statistics South Africa part of, not in 1994, but years later, the president of Rwanda was so keen to come to South Africa to see what STSA is doing, to the point that he wanted to attend our conference in 2007. Mm-hmm. But knowing that, if a president comes to a country, our conference and our thinking will actually be diluted by the political heavyweights, that then you'll have to visit the president Beck and so on. Mm. So advisedly, Trevor Manuel, who was the minister, then said, no, don't encourage the president to come. Do your stuff, get it right, and then go and meet in Rwanda next year as statisticians. Mm. And he welcomed us there. And indeed, he has stuck to the issue of evidence. They built that statistics office, NSI, in Rwanda, which I refer to, that when Nkosazana Zuma, minister, went there in 2019, when she asked the head of that statistics, the head of statistics said, well, this is what Paddy helped us to establish. So the interinstitutional arrangements, the reliance of fellow Africans, and self-reliance, and in fact, Rwanda has been very, very, very self-reliant and leaning on Africans to help, has helped them a lot.
So how? But here's the question. You spoke about cleaning up, and of course I've had the privilege of being to Kigali, and I know they have this. Well, the streets are spotless, we know that, but they also have this once a month, every family around their own patch needs to clean up outside. This sort of citizen cleanup. I get that, right? But for that to have happened, there had to be a moral buy-in, isn't it? How did that happen in the aftermath of the genocide?
Well, they decided to go and do what they do best, to dig deep in their tradition. They had these village courts that have always been there in Rwanda. I imagine if they had invited another system when they were in the deepest of their troubles, it wouldn't have worked. They dealt with the village as the center of justice delivery. And forgiveness after confession was largely central to this. That is atonement, repair, and then, of course, redemption were central to what they did. I mean, it reminds me of King Moshesh when his grandfather was eaten by the cannibals. Mm-hmm. And for sure, those cannibals were sure that the army was going to eat them up, to kill them. But the king said, those are the graves of my grandfather. They cannot be desecrated. Rwanda did similarly, that we shouldn't desecrate the tragedy that has befallen us.
Okay, so we've got about a minute
to compromise it, but we have to walk through it.
All right.
And
there's about 90 seconds to go, so let's just pick on other things quickly. Whatever you've said about Rwanda at this point in time works, okay? Critics, however, will talk about the fact that in Paul Kagame, you do effectively have a leader who's authoritarian, and the concept of, or his concept of democracy is very different to South Africa's concept of democracy. What do you say to that?
It is indeed. His concept of democracy does have elements of freedom that you vote, but that's what anchors that is a better quality of life. That is, invest in education, invest in security, invest in making the economy work.
Would you say that that's worked because he's, and I'm using these words in inverted commas, that he's authoritarian, that if he was ultra-democratic, it may not have worked because of the need for multiple levels of consensus?
It would be the wrong example to conclude that way, because there are countries where they are very ultra-democratic and democracy works. It delivers both the right of choice, but the right of choice for the right economic policies.
Okay, we got 30 seconds. We want to news. We have an election in a month's time. What's the one thing? There's 100, but what's the one primary thing that you want South Africa to get right now?
Business approached government when COVID struck. They came with targets. In 2 years before that, through Indlamity, we modeled what South Africa should achieve. We modeled and we got the targets. When business came with their proposals, they came to exactly the same kinds of targets. We provided an econometric modeling. Business didn't come with an economic modeling, econometric modeling. But the coincidence of targets should be what South Africa should look at, because we have the path, and business said we are willing.
Okay. Got that?
That's
business,
what we have to do in South Africa to get this economy to work.
Business, get involved, set targets, effectively come to the country's rescue. And that'll, maybe to paraphrase what you're saying, build a champion nation, as per Pani Lahotla. Appreciate your time, former statistician general, and does great work around economic modelling. You need to follow him on social media, on Twitter, certainly on the X platform. Absolutely. Let's get the news now. Just gone 5 o'clock. Here's Greg House.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, millions of rands in damage caused by KZN floods in Malawi eases visa restrictions. Good day to you. The KwaZulu-Natal MEC for Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Bonisa Duma, says initial reports indicate that the damage caused by this weekend's flash floods is estimated at millions of rands. 5 people have died. The MEC visited areas on the province's south coast that were affected by the heavy rains that began on the weekend in Margate.
We've already visited major shops, owners who are already affected, and we've given the form so that we could assist, because we are the current government, and already both municipalities have dispatched their team to assist. ATIA has done the same thing on spending the assignment on the issue of environmentalists who are going to assist us going forward. There is preliminary that is suggesting that it's going to go to millions. It means that national minister must just come closer to the process. We've already shared the information with the president as well, who's worried, who's also passed his condolences to the families, because for us this is a national outcry and everyone must just partake in the journey and assist.
Hunal tourists also joined community members in cleaning up the flood damage.
Well, we are holidaying at the Margate Sands Hotel. We just arrived on Saturday, and we saw all the destruction from our balcony. And so instead of sitting there just watching everything, we decided, well, we might as well go down and help and be part of the solution.
I love the sea, so I was disappointed I couldn't swim, but I've decided to come help, so maybe next time I can swim.
In election news, the leader of the African People's Convention, Themba Gordis, expressed his confidence in the partnership he's formed with the Better Residents Association in Bushbuck region in Mpumalanga. He says this is one of the many agreements the party is going to sign before the elections as they make their way back to Parliament. The APC leader lost his seat in Parliament in the previous elections.
Well, our coming together with the BRA is part of our effort as the APC to consolidate our support base here in Bushbuck Ridge and in Mpumalanga. In the short term, the objective is to work together to mobilize support for the APC to be voted in the elections. BRA did not register for the elections. They have members who are citizens of this country who must participate in the electoral process. And it was only logical for them to give their support to the APC as a party with whom we share a common perspective.
Sentencing procedures in the trial of a teenager and her two co-accused of the murder of 4 members of her family have been postponed to June. Ontatile Sebati and her 2 cousins were found guilty of murdering Sebati's parents, her sister and a 3-year-old brother at their home near Brits in the northwest. Ontatile later confessed to plotting the murder, implicating the 2 co-accused who also confessed to the murders. Pumzila Mangeni reports.
The High Court had set aside 4 days for the sentencing proceedings. However, the matter could not proceed this morning after the defense indicated they are yet to be finished with the pre-sentencing report of the second accused, Ontatile Sebati. The court had social workers compiled only the victim's statement but not the pre-sentencing report. The judge has ordered social workers to ensure they provide the legal teams with the report, which includes programs she will be subjected to during her incarceration by May 28th.
Visa-free travel's on the rise in Africa, with Malawi the latest country to ease restrictions. Earlier this year, Kenya went visa-free for all visitors. The move falls in line with the African Union's Agenda 2063. Kwame Seno, the executive director of a think tank that is committed to fostering Africa's economic and human development, spoke to the SABC.
South Africa removed visa requirement for the Kenyan from the 1st January 2023, and SA Tourism reported an increase of 97% of visitors into South Africa from Kenya over that period. So this is a practical example of what visa-free can do for traveling. It incites people to travel easily, and it creates opportunity for growth through new ideas.
Top story, the KZN MEC for Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs says initial reports indicate the damage caused by this weekend's flash floods on the province's south coast is estimated at millions of rands. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khos.
In your sports this hour, SA Under-17's trip to Colombia hanging in the balance, and Box get early rugby championship kickoff. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound is slow moving through Crown Interchange towards Boysons. Jan Smuts Avenue northbound in Dunkel West is slow moving at North Road. The N1 northbound in Midrand has a crash near Olifantsfontein Road. All lanes are open, but traffic is still slow moving, and Allendale Road eastbound in Klerkop has delays towards Mastiff Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound has taxi protest reported. That's towards the M25 Commercial Highway exit, causing delays. The M7 is queuing at Bel Air Waxley Road Junction. The N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle near the M13 Paradise Valley interchange, causing delays. The N3 in both directions is roadworks with traffic restrictions in the Cliffdale area, and Chris Hani Road is queuing at the N2 highway. In Cape Town, Walter-Vreden Drive is closed between Cedar Avenue and Spine Road. Robert Subuke Road southbound is queuing at Castles-Fleur Road. Forest Drive southbound is queuing towards Alexandra Road. Main Road outbound is slow moving towards the N2 highway, and Voortrekker Road eastbound is slow moving through Maitland. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Join Smile Foundation for a movie night under the stars featuring Sing 2 on Saturday, 20th of April at Old Ed Sports Grounds. To book, visit smilefoundationsa.org. This is an SABC supported initiative.
Royal AM ladies and Lindelani ladies want to showcase who are the real queens of KZN. They both want out of the bottom half. This is the Hollywood Best Super League. Experience the KZN Derby, Royal AM Ladies FC versus Lindelani Ladies FC on Sunday 21 April at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Amazing. It's amazing. It's day 10 of me hosting the show, The National Pulse, and really settling into it and really enjoying the feedback I'm getting from audience, via WhatsApps or text, and certainly people that I bump into. So I really appreciate that. It's part of a team, and we want to make the show really work, okay? So your feedback, as always, is important. And you can voice note us, 086. In fact, calling in is 086 000 2032. Then voice note, as in WhatsApp, text, or voice notes, 0614 104 107. You can also tweet us using the hashtag the National Pulse, and then tag SAFM Radio on that X platform, as well as myself. D from Velcom saying, hi, Ashraf and the team. Welcome back after many years. Great show as always. That's really, really kind of you. We'll be chatting. That podcast of the Pali the Hotline interview will be put up as a podcast, so listen out for that pretty shortly. We'll be chatting to Jeremy Sampson about developments around the brand value of big South African companies, and I'm really looking forward to that conversation as part of our innovation hub, because we really want to up innovation on the show. But I wish we can be more innovative in how we can deal with the real life issues of life and death, particularly around the issues of gender-based violence. Now, you may know, in the first hour of the show, we spoke to the Western Cape MEC for Police Oversight and Community Safety, that's Regan Allen, who said that about 90 gender-based violence cases in that region were struck off the rolls, mainly because of police negligence. That's a huge issue. So we're going to take that story further. With me on the line is Advocate Intabiseng Sepanya Mokhale, who's the chairperson of the Commission for Gender Equality. Advocate Sepanya Mokhale, appreciate your time and thanks for joining us here on the National Pulse. Okay, we've just dropped our guest for a moment. Let me do this. There's a couple of more people commenting on a range of issues. I believe the President has gone back on his word and just threw his Tinswalo into frustration in desperation. That's from Matari in GP. GP is in what? Gauteng province. There's another one. I'm listening to SAFM from Machat. That is the endearment for Matatiele, okay? Shortened version. Situated on the borders of Lesotho and southwestern KZN from Moku Po. Good. Thanks for that. Love that. So we know wherever you may be around the country, around this land. And in fact, also, like yesterday, we had this message from people from Austria. So if you're listening online outside the borders of South Africa, anywhere in the world, particularly Antarctica, I'm just checking, wherever you are, let me know so we know that you are there. Okay, so we do have Advocate Intabiseng Sepanya Mokhale with us, the chairperson of the Commission for Gender Equality. Good chatting to you, firstly, Advocate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me play back a sound of the conversation we had when we started the show just after 3 o'clock this afternoon, when the person we spoke to, Regan Allen, had this to say.
Currently, we do monitor cases, and we do that specifically not to meet a tick box, but to ultimately ensure that where there's inefficiencies, where docket, Ashraf, is not at court, ultimately leading to a case being struck off the court roll, denying that particular survivor, that victim, the necessary help that they need. It ultimately leads to secondary victimization, and for that particular period, 89 gender-based violence cases were ultimately struck off the court roll. And as you and many of the listeners will be aware, that gender-based violence, including rape, is one of the most underreported cases. And when these happen in our communities, it ultimately leads to a lower number of cases even in future that could be made, because people are already feeling what will happen if I do make a case, because nothing happens. Hence, we are always wanting to ensure that our oversight can lead to better service delivery, and we monitor these court cases specifically to ensure that there can be remedial action and action taken against SAPS officers that are not doing their job.
All right, that's what was said by the Western Cape MEC for Police Oversight and Community Safety. He's particularly concerned that 90 gender-based violence cases were struck off the court rolls primarily because of police negligence. So, Advocate Intabiseng Sepanya Mokhale, what do you make of that statement? And, how true is it?
Yeah, to a large extent it is true, but let's not forget, Ashraf, that every leadership in every society and community is actually supposed to make sure that gender-based violence does not happen. So it's a sad day that, it continues to happen. That's the first thing. Secondly, the silos within which we operate, government, civil society, everybody, is another factor where things fall between the cracks, because when you are government, whether you're provincial or local, but don't see yourself as as having a duty to create a supportive environment, not to have gender-based violence, and where it is, police officers must actually be supported. That's another problem. Thirdly, we have a compromised recruitment requirement for police officers. You cannot have a police officer who we expect one day will go to court and be a credible witness, be a credible expert, when they do not have a requisite or rather a basic level of education. So the recruitment compromises because some people cannot even write properly and therefore it affects the quality. And because the recruitment standards are so low, what you necessarily tell the police officer is not what ends up in the statement, because some of the details they decide or they edit out as you are speaking to say, where did this happen, how did it happen, etc. Instead of probing further, they don't have those skills and training and that discernment and wisdom that sometimes one needs in a particular job situation where you can probe things further to get more details. So that point, I mean, that recruitment barrier being so low, I mean, that is a huge cause for concern. Are you saying, therefore, in your opinion, that, for example, with this issue, that if there's 90 cases thrown out of court because of negligence, it's primarily because of an inability, therefore, with the police to do their job purely because of their lack of knowledge and therefore negligence, as opposed to being indifferent? They're not indifferent, they just don't know any better. I think there's a bit of both. They don't know any better, but they tend to become indifferent because of the workload. It is not unheard of in South Africa to have a police officer investigating 400 cases in a very small community. So you can imagine how large the communities are in South Africa, because every of our community has got an informal settlement attached to it, etc., our police stations. So we've got very large communities. They may not seem so, but they are large. So it's a bit of both. That indifference, but that indifference is as a result of people feeling overwhelmed and not knowing what to do. And why sometimes you do not know what to do is because of the limited knowledge that you have about certain things. But the other indifference is still there for sure.
But if that is the case, I mean, that is a cause for serious alarm that does point questions on the issues of who is in charge of recruitment.
Yes. There's that needs to be looked at. But unfortunately, it's actually a national standard. Our police officers, nobody has ever said, university law students come in and be IOs, investigating officers. We actually think that's too low for them. We go for the unemployed, lowest of the rank, so long as they don't have a criminal record. That is, now at least they're taking those things. So it has been a culture even before democracy. You must remember the Cape Constables during apartheid, where all what you could do is, are you brave enough to shoot, and then you go in. So that is a problem, and those people a lot of them are still in the system, up in the ranks, or they've been there, they know a lot.
Well, I mean, your point is an important one in the sense that, fine, I get it. You don't have to be a university graduate. In fact, you could be whatever. I think the next step is, as long as you can write competently and comprehend, the next step would be adequate training on the job, isn't it? Which then suggests there's an absence of adequate training even there. All that does, in the greater scheme of things, the public, you and I and everybody else, particularly in the Western Cape, who then feel largely out of touch with the police because they just don't think the police are in sync with community, that would be justified, isn't it? So if they have a lack of confidence in the police service, then you can't blame the public anymore, isn't it?
Yes, to a large extent, it is correct. Ashraf, just a small example that I would like to give you. Sometimes when somebody comes to the front desk of a police officer and says, this violation happened in the veld somewhere, it was raining, etc. When you are a police officer, you should actually be able to say, can I examine your clothes? Are these the clothes that you are wearing? All of those questions that you need to beef up the evidence that you're gathering. Yet these are the things that sometimes lawyers use in courts to say, you say it was raining, you say this, yet nothing is written here about the state of the clothes that you're wearing. You know, and it's supposed to have been a police officer saying, why are your clothes not muddy? Have you changed? Can you please go back home and bring those clothes as soon as possible? You know, those kinds of things. That's why I was talking about the wisdom and discernment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious. If they're unable to write properly and comprehend, then the police are not able to police. I mean, that's really what it is, which leads me to ask you this final point here, right? In terms of where you sit as at the Commission for Gender Equality, and we are talking about GBP specifically, but there are other issues around crime too, right? So, considering that we have this problem and you can see that it is a problem, what's the next step? I mean, what can we do to elevate this to a point of urgency? Because we can't have this conversation in 3 months' time and then the SAPS will say, well, we understand the problem and we're looking into it. We can't have that, can we?
No, we can't. And unfortunately, we've had it not only for 3 months, not for 3 years, but for many, many years. But I would start by saying where we start is better recruitment. Let's have a higher standard of requirement where people understand they can read and write, they have a certain level of confidence to write reports, to write statements that can be presented in court, go to court, talk to those statements, and be confident about it. Secondly, better screening in terms of what the situation that people find themselves in, because you don't need a police officer who all what they want is a job, any job. No, who does go somewhere.
Lastly, who does the buck stop with?
The buck stops with the Minister of Police, but the Minister of Police as a functionary of government, a government that has taken oath with us, that is embedded in Section 7.2 of our Constitution, that says the state must protect, promote, and ensure human rights.
And that key word, must protect and promote, is really the essence of government delivering to its people. Thank you for your time. Very important issue. Advocate Intabiseng Sepanya Mokhali, the chairperson of the Commission for Gender Equality. You may have your own views on that. I certainly want you to tell me what does it get you think about in terms of that in the context of the national pulse. WhatsApp, text, anytime.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, let's get to, we'll pick up some callers just now. Let's get to the issue of innovation. One of the features that we've introduced into these shows, and we did it yesterday with the discussing around IT issues, so it's upping issues around innovation and tech and gadgets, because we believe there's a big market for that, an audience that we need to be able to cover, right? So with that in mind, we'll be chatting pretty shortly, in fact, to Jeremy Sampson. But let me just tell you as well, let's continue with some of the messages. We've got Mazizoli saying, I'm voting for the ACC because I want the death penalty for murderers, right? In fact, Mazizoli saying, Mazizoli is a great and honest leader the country needs, come from Inguzo, right? Okay, so a few days ago, in fact, I was at the JSE because the brand finance team have put together an interesting rollout with regards to South Africa's most valuable brands. So we thought, let's talk about that. In fact, what does it really even mean when we talk about the most valuable brands, right? So with me, as part of this Innovation Hub features, Jeremy Sampson, the chairperson of Brand Finance Africa. Jeremy, good chatting to you. It's been a long, long time.
Ashraf, very good to be talking to you on SABC. It's been a while, as you say.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get to where we are with regards to your event. I think that there were two categories, if I'm not mistaken, that you put together, and the key word in both those categories were brand, right? So what was judged, firstly?
Basically, as you would know, but perhaps your listeners don't, Brand Finance is a London-based consultancy. It's been around 30 years, and it puts a ranking of brands by their financial value, which is the one aspect, and their brand strength, which is the second aspect. And brand strength is really a basket of things where there are perhaps around about 100 metrics that can relate to, well, what's the future prospects, what's the investment in marketing, what are they doing in sustainability, all those softer issues, as it were, and then there's, as I say, the financial, and that all comes together. Both of these, incidentally, are regulated by international standards. So this is global best practice, which we bring to South Africa.
And when you say financial, are we talking balance sheet financial?
Yes. And that's very important because we do these rankings without the commitment or support of the companies involved. Now, that can get tricky because, for the most part, you can only get hold of the financials of companies if they're listed on stock exchanges. So, as I say, we do probably well over 100 rankings a year, global and local. And so we've got to have access to the figures. And that's where, when you look at the top South African brands, for the most part, they're all listed on the JSE.
Okay.
And that means they're coming out with either 6 monthly or quarterly figures.
Understandably. Okay, we're going to get to the listing in a moment. But here's the last thing. If understanding assets and liabilities is simple enough on the balance sheet, you have access to that, how then do you determine brand value if it's a soft thing? I mean, can you sell brand value?
Well, you can sell brands. You know, this is where a Jaguar, a Land Rover, have been bought and sold a couple of times in the last couple of decades. So today they're owned by Tata. Likewise, a Rolls-Royce or a Bentley owned by Volkswagen and BMW. The interesting thing is that the International Financial Regulatory Board, often the whole question of intangible assets, which is what brands fall under, becomes a tricky area. And I often joke, Ashraf, I shouldn't be asking you this, but what's the difference between Johnny Walker whiskey and a good tequila or something like that?
And clearly I wouldn't know, as your point is. Go ahead.
I know. But my point is that, you know, Johnny Walker is a homegrown brand, and as a homegrown brand, it can't be put on the books of Diageo. Whereas a brand that they've acquired, therefore they've got a financial value, they can put that on their balance sheet. And this is where it gets very confusing.
But Johnny Walker does make great ads, I'll concede that, okay? Right, having said that, what have you come up with in terms of your ranking?
Basically, this is the 15th year we've done the rankings in South Africa, and MTN has been very dominant, followed by Vodacom, the two telcos right up at the top there. There was a time where at the bottom of the rankings, but in the rankings were Telkom and Cell C, and sadly they both dropped down a bit. But MTN and Vodacom are the top brands. MTN, of course, is worth now round about, wait for it, 68 billion rands, which is an awful lot of money. And people forget that also MTN is in about 20 countries. Basically, also, all the countries, you have to consider that when we do global rankings, what do you do it in? Well, you do it in American dollars, and then you do a secondary table in the local currency. Now, that's bad news for MTN because they're in 20-odd countries. When you measure the local brands in those 20 countries against the US dollar, you only have to look at Nigeria, where the Naira has dropped over 30% in the last 12 months. That knocks their value down. And this is where generally, as a broad brush approach, African brands, their values are not going up too much, and in some cases they're going down, partly because of the risk factor and partly because of the financial factors.
Okay, so MTN is number one, so the most valuable brand in South Africa, right?
And in Africa,
and on the continent, followed by Vodacom, and then who makes up the top five?
Then we go to Standard Bank, and that's in number 3 position. And Standard Bank has had a very, very good year indeed, very, very strong. And then, interestingly, in 4th position is Nando's. Now, I was saying earlier that we only get the financials from listed companies. Nando's, everyone says, well, as a brand, of course it's valuable. But this is the first time we've actually listed it. And the reason is, and those with a long memory will remember, when Nando's was formed in 1987, why do you go onto the stock exchange? Well, you go on to raise money. So they went onto the stock exchange, but after a couple of years, I think, A, they didn't need to raise more money, and B, they didn't like the analysts challenging them and telling them how to run their business. So they delisted. So for the last, 20, 30 years, you couldn't get hold of the financials. But because they're doing so much business in the UK and Europe and around, in fact, the world, they have to put their figures into Companies House in London, and Companies House in London means they're in the public domain. So for the first time ever, we managed to find some figures that gave us enough integrity to be able to put a value on the brand.
Fascinating, although they very much still a private company, right, with what, 1, 2, 3 shareholders, and I understand that. So they're at number 4. That's significant. Then you've got at number 5?
Number 5 is FNB. So by financial value, FNB is number 5. And in brand strength terms, it's number 1. But financially, again, it's a very strong brand. It's actually running strong and steady at the moment. So those are your top 5: MTN, Vodacom, Standard Bank, Nando's, and FNB.
Okay, these are all important questions. So 2 in the telco business, 2 banks, and 1 food company in that top 5, right? Of course, people can see the whole list. I'll tweet it out myself too. But here's the last thing in 30 seconds. How valuable is this listing to these brands?
It gives them tremendous potential bragging rights in the sense that what are they doing that's right? And when it comes to the community, when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to brand strength, this is very important for top brands. And the thing about a good brand is the fact that they engender loyalty, they engender love, they have consistency of buying, and that means that any company that owns strong brands is going to have a financial consistency as well through the loyalty of their customers. And that's where brands are fantastic for companies, and they're great ambassadors for South Africa.
And since you're such a brand champion, maybe we'll give you some homework and say, can you put something together regarding South Africa's political party brands, as in what's the value of the ANC? And I'm doing it in order, ANC, GA, EFF, and then we'll see the rest. Think about that. You've got some homework to do, Jeremy Sampson. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Ashraf.
There we are, Jeremy Sampson. I mean, feeling rather nostalgic, in fact, talking to him, chairman of the Brand Finance Africa. So there we are. Those are the top 5: MTN, Vodacom, Standard Bank, Nando's, and FNB. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Greg House.
Quick look at the headlines of this half hour. 3 suspects have been shot and killed during a shootout with law enforcement at Chrisville, south of Johannesburg. The KZN MEC for Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs says initial reports indicate that the damage caused by this weekend's flash floods on the province's south coast is estimated at millions of rands. And a fire has hit Copenhagen's Old Stock Exchange, one of the Danish capital's most iconic buildings. I'll have a full update at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound is slow moving through Crown Interchange towards Boysons. The N1 northbound in Midrand has a crash near Olifantsfontein Road. All lanes are open. Allendale Road eastbound in Kloekop has delays towards Mastiff Road. The N14 eastbound in Centurion has a fatal crash reported just before the R55 Pretoria West exit, causing delays. In KZN, the N2 southbound queuing towards the M25 Commercial Highway exit. The M7 is queuing at Bel Air Wakesley Road Junction. The N3 westbound is queuing towards the M13 Paradise Valley interchange. The N3 northbound has a crash near Van Reenens Pass, so expect delays. Chris Hani Road is queuing at the N2 highway, and RD Naidu Drive has a crash reported at Randalls Road, so that's causing delay in traffic on all approaches. In Cape Town, the N2 inbound has a crash before Muway. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Krombom Road exit. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and the N1 inbound has a crash reported just before the M5 Kuburg interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, Tumi, top stories?
Well, the top story is an update on the SA Under-17 team. It's been confirmed that the team is definitely not going to Colombia today due to some travel complication. Amajimbos are reportedly at their base camp instead. The team was supposed to play 2 international friendly matches against Colombia as they continue with preparations for the upcoming COSAFA Under-17 champs and the 2025 AFCON qualifiers. They were initially scheduled to leave last week Friday, but couldn't with the delayed visas at the time, and the dates of the rearranged matches are the 19th and the 23rd 1st of April, and it's still not clear if the trip will go ahead, but we're still waiting for a statement from SAFA. Still staying with football, Atletico Madrid coach Diego Simeone says that he is wary of Borussia Dortmund's strength at home as his side prepare for the return leg of the Champions League quarterfinal tonight. Atletico, who are looking for their first Champions League semi-final place in 7 years, go into this game having a 2-1 lead from last week's first game. However, Simeone has acknowledged that the German side's power at home is unavoidable, and you can really see it in terms of the stats, because Dortmund are unbeaten in their last 9 games at home in the tournament, so they will definitely fancy their chances. If Dortmund win, it will be their first time that they've gone 10 consecutive games or home games in the European Cup and Champions League without losing. In the other clash, Barcelona welcome PSG, and the French side have been boosted by the return of Achraf Hakimi. Then in tennis, reigning champion Carlos Alcaraz has pulled out of the Barcelona Open due to a right arm injury, and he's doubtful for next week's Madrid Open. The 20-year-old who won the tournament in Barca in 2022 and 2023 was forced to withdraw due to the same injury that kept the Spanish world number 3 out of last week's Monte Carlo Masters, and basically, he's hoping that he'll be back in action soon. In rugby, the Springboks Rugby Championship opener against the Wallabies will get underway in the morning of the 10th of August. According to the official schedule, the test match in Brisbane on Saturday is set to kick off around 6:45 South African time, while the test in Perth will start at 11:55 on the 17th of August. The Springboks home test matches against New Zealand in Pretoria and Cape Town and against Argentina at Mbombela will get underway around 5 p.m. SA time. Meanwhile, the away test against Los Pumas in Santiago will kick off at 11 p.m. This year, the Rugby Championship will return to the 12-match mini-tour format following an abbreviated tournament in 2023 due to the World Cup in France. On that note, it is a wrap from my side. For SAFM Sport, ke nna Tumen Kgapele, Modimo ke o.
And you said that today because yesterday you didn't.
I did.
And we had like 1,000 complaints. For those who don't get it, just tell us what that means.
It's just basically me saying, God bless you.
Yeah, people were like, where's the prayers?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
You got it now, right?
There you got
Thank
it.
You. We'll do it again tomorrow. Don't forget the prayer session just before we end sport every single day at 5:30 thereabouts. Anyway.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, we, in fact, lots more to talk about. We'll take some of the calls too on the range of issues we've covered in terms of the That's My Point feature I did at the beginning of the show about how you go about choosing which party you're going to vote for. What do you think of that conversation with Jeremy Sampson of Brand Finance putting MTN number 1, South Africa's most valuable brand, followed by Vodacom? Look at the sectors so you get it right. You can comment on that. We'll have it up as a podcast as well. And then also the range of issues around gender-based violence that we spoke about, Western Cape, and then my conversation with the Commissioner about, just incompetence as a key factor around negligence. I mean, that should freak you out. Honestly, there's just no nice way to say it. Think about that. Let's talk money now with the MoneyWeb market update with Jimmy Moyaha. Hi, Jimmy.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to me, and good afternoon to the listeners.
Good afternoon. Go ahead. You have lots to talk about, I know.
Yes, today it seems as though we finally got the update that the Purple Group had so desperately wanted and needed, the market reacting exceptionally well to that. So I've got a conversation with the Purple Group CEO, Charles Savage, to unpack their interim results that they reported on this morning. I've also got a conversation around the latest updates from the BHI Trust Ponzi scheme that we've been keeping an eye on. That scheme at some point was or had defrauded customers to the tune of 1.1 billion rand. It seems that figure is now closer to 1.7 billion rand. So we're going to dig into that, try and unpack that and try and make sense of what's happening there. Then I've got a conversation with the Commissioner at the International Trade and Administration Commission, that is ITAC, around their recent hacking. Their systems were hacked as the latest government organization or state organization that has been affected by these hacking attacks. We're going to speak to the Commissioner and try and unpack what's happening there. And then we've got a conversation with Luxi around their electricity offering. Luxi is, of course, the platform offering from Standard Bank for alternative investments in terms of alternative power sources. And then we've got a conversation as part of our property segment with Werner Berger, who is the CEO of IFA Hotels and Resorts. That is, of course, the company that gave us Zimbali Coastal Estates. They're now giving us Zimbali Lakes, the project that they've been working on for the last 20 years. We're seeing some really big progress in terms of that. In fact, they've partnered with Ernie Els around that. So we're going to dig into that, unpack all of that in our show, and try and make sense of what it all means from an investment point of view as well. But before we get to that, the markets have had an absolutely torrid day. It doesn't look like there was much to celebrate here, and Henko Creer has been keeping an eye on those markets for us throughout the day. He joins me now to reflect on some of the movements. Good afternoon, Henko. Thanks as always for keeping an eye on the markets. Sea of red on the equities front. The rand is weak. Bitcoin is weak. Oil prices are high. Is there anything to be happy about?
Hello, Jimmy. No, I couldn't agree more. There isn't much to celebrate today. Hello to you and to Ashraf and to me, and good evening to all the listeners. No, I couldn't really find anything on the positive side of things today. Even in the US, their markets are down. You'll find the S&P 500 at this stage trading about 0.2% weaker, and the Nasdaq losing about 0.05%. European stocks, they finished quite deep into the red, with the FTSE 100 in London losing 2% today. The DAX was 1.7% down, and the CAC 40 in France lost 1.6%. And then the JSE's all-share index finished 2.05% weaker at a level of 73,000 points. The industrial index lost 1.8% today. The financial index finished 1.1% weaker, and then that resources index lost 3.5% today. BHP had a terrible day because BHP finished 5% weaker. Glencore and Anglo finished 3.7% down. Naspers and Prosus, those two hand in hand, 2.5% weaker at the end of the day. And Goldfields and AB InBev each lost 2% today, followed by Richmond, which finished the day 1.5% weaker. Other companies that gave poor performances today were Amplats and South32. Amplats lost 6.7%. South32, 6% down. Sappi and Sibanye-Stillwater, they each lost 5.3%. And Sasol and Kumba finished the day 5% weaker. On the positive side, couldn't find much. The companies that finished stronger at the end of the day, not up by a lot, only 91 and Discovery, we've each gained 1.2%. Then on the commodities market, the price of gold, $2,387 an ounce. Silver is trading at $28.35. Platinum, $970, and palladium, $1,030. The price of Brent crude, it did go a bit down during the course of the day, but now made a U-turn and going up again, sitting at $90.20 a barrel. Then, unfortunately, you're paying more than 19 Rand again for US dollar, now 19 Rand and 5 cents. Then 23 Rand 67 for a pound, 20 Rand 23 for a euro, and 12 Rand 19 for an Australian dollar. Bitcoin is also something that came a bit down today and now trading at $62,200, and that is 1.2 million Rand. So, Jimmy, most, if not everything that we saw today was quite under pressure today, ranging from the markets to Brent crude to the Rand. So, yes, definitely a very rare day.
Thank you very much for that update, Henku. I'm going to sit and try and find a silver lining between now and our show. There seems to be lots to unpack, and we will unpack as much of it as we can. We've also got CPI print coming out tomorrow, so I'm going to get some expectations around that print. But we'll be back just after 6 p.m. For now, Ashraf, back to you and the team.
And sitting on my way home, I will be listening to your show, just so you know that, Jimmy. Right, let's talk about other things. In fact, there's a range of people who have strong views on many things. So here's your chance to get it off your chest. What is it that gets your pulse racing, personally, and the national pulse in terms of the issues? Well, I'll tell you what, the issue of the gender-based violence and the negligence of cops, that gets my blood boiling, as it should. What do you make of that conversation, right? The other is... You now know this, the IEC confirming that whatever happens with the appeal regarding former President Jacob Zuma, his image will be on the MK party ballot sheet unless the MK party chooses otherwise. So that will not stop it no matter what. So even if he is prevented from going to Parliament, which is another conversation, they can choose, since he's their leader, they can choose to have his image. So the image of former President Jacob Zuma, once representing the ANC, will be up on the ballot sheet representing MK. What do you make of that? And other thoughts about how are you going to go about making decisions that will help you choose which party to vote for. I don't need a name. I just want to know the process that you are filtering through to make a choice. Having said that, let's get the mastermind, because he's got the whole story, he or she, on voting from Middleburg. Hi, mastermind.
Good afternoon. How are you, Ashraf?
Yeah, with a name like Mastermind, I mean, is that a real name, right?
Thank you. My real name is Philip Gupega.
But Mastermind is cool. Okay, go ahead, Mastermind.
Yeah, because most of the people calling me like that. No, I'm just my concern here in these parties which have been coming to an election before the 29 is because there are names which have been implemented, some of them in the corruption. So if you see now we are in the country, we are sucking in the corruption. People are very poor, no work, no nothing, and people are struggling. Even things is coming to very expensive in shops. So now you select people which they have been allegation of corruption in the parliament. If these people they win, they will use the taxpayers' money to defend themselves in their corruption again.
So what should they do then? Because you see, here's my thinking. If there's allegations of corruption, and I know the ANC has got this thing about this, stand aside rule. If there's allegations and the party chooses for them to step aside, that's one thing. But if it's an allegation and not proven in court, not convicted, you can't. How do you discard that person already?
Yes, that is where the problem is, because as a party, because like in the government, you're supposed to select people which are their name are not implemented in the crime, because in the corruption actually, because this person, if he now is selected in power of the government, the problem is that. So now, as I said before, Mr. Ashraf, we are sinking in the poverty in our country because of the ministers which we have in the government, because they don't do their job. They defending themselves by the money of the taxpayers in the court. Day by day, we are listening in the court. They talking about so, and in that time, things here, people they no job. We found out there are many people coming from other countries in the major problem that we face. For an example, yesterday here in Mpumalanga, in Bombela, people they have trying to defend themselves because now government is folding his arms to come and intervene in such things which take place for the foreign people. These people, they have no paper. These people, they going around vulnerable all over the country. No one is.
Okay, but they're two separate issues, right? I mean, I get that. That's another issue. They've not documented. That's another issue. But you're talking about those who are corrupt or allegations of corruption, and they in court. Yes. Okay, got that.
All those things started from the people which are in the government, and now we are going to election, and the people, these things is going through. If we're not stopping right now at the same time. Thank you very much.
Mastermind, like the name Mastermind from Middleburg. In fact, that gets me thinking about two footballers. One was Lucas Masterpieces Moripe. Remember him? You can be very nostalgic about that. And the other one was Zachariah Computer Lamola, and the story was he was called Computer even before computers were invented, because he was so ahead of his time. I mean, can you think of anybody who's got some brilliant nicknames? I don't mean football, I mean anything, like Mastermind, like nicknames that are just magic, or they just get you thinking about it. You let me know. You can WhatsApp anytime. Quintes from Quebec saying, Ashraf, quick question. Can I sue or take the government to court if I don't get the services or was not protected by the police as per the Constitution, and I prove that I paid to government? Quintes, suggest you speak to your lawyer. Honestly, that's the way, the process. Speak to your lawyer. Speak to a lawyer. Let's get that ball rolling. We're going to talk about some developing stories around issues of children being poisoned in a hospital. So that's coming up pretty shortly. There's lots of voice notes as well. Let's hear some of them.
Rewind the years and relive all the action on the A-Team. John Hannibal Smith leads the team of 4 members of a former commando outfit. His plans may be unorthodox, but they're effective. Lieutenant Templeton Pegg, second in command, a smooth-talking conman, and the appropriator of vehicles and other useful items. The team pilot, Captain Howling Mad Murdoch. Howling Mad. His name says it all. Sergeant First Class Mr. T, the team's strongman and mechanic. Join them as they embark on epic adventures and missions, all in attempts to clear their names, weekdays at 12. Channel your inner A-game with the A-Team, only on S3.
Royal AM ladies and Lindelani ladies want to showcase who are the real queens of KZN. They both want out of the bottom half. This is the Hollywood Best Super League. Experience the KZN Derby, Royal AM Ladies FC versus Lindelani Ladies FC on Sunday 21 April at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Joe Cran, Star Sheffield journalist. Of the top 3, I mean, Man City doing what Man City do best, thrashing Luton, and then watching Liverpool and Arsenal implode effectively under the pressure. Do you think now Man City have got a real foot in the door as far as the title race is concerned?
It seems to happen every season, doesn't it, with Man City? It's almost like they lull other teams into thinking they've got a chance, and then the crunch time comes and they're just able to handle the pressure. You look at sort of the way the last couple of fixtures played out for Arsenal and Liverpool. They weren't games that you would expect them to particularly struggle in, and yet here we are, and Man City and Pep Guardiola will be licking their lips at this one.
Top Sport on SAFM. The National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Greetings, SAFM team. I'm calling from the Free State. I want to remain anonymous. I've just only now had a chance to watch the video where the president actually answered the young lady in the manner that he did. I'm working, I have employment, however, it's painful. It looks like the president does not understand what the people are going through on the ground. For him, it was easy to say she should keep searching. He doesn't know, he didn't bother to ask, how has she been searching? If the president didn't have anything to say to her, he should have just kept his words and not ask her so many questions. They don't understand the pain of having hope and being enthusiastic with a hungry stomach. The president is not aware of what is happening on the ground. Our people are struggling, and I have employment, but even where I am, I still feel like I need a better job. How about those who are unemployed and so enthusiastic as that young lady? Thank you.
Well, sure. I'm so sorry. I can hear your tone, your concerns, your fears, your worries in that message, and you're still suggesting, I think you've got a job, if I'm not mistaken, if I get that right. But I think here's the point, and I'm not in that position, right? But do we have any idea how many unemployed people there are in this country? Do we have any idea how many people in this country effectively have no hope, who are living in poverty and who are desperate, and for them that hope of tomorrow does not come? I think that's the essence of your conversation. And therefore leading me then to what the president may have said to this lady about just carry on searching, right? I did mention, I haven't watched the full piece, but perhaps at least an arm around her shoulder, if that was culturally correct, to do something to show empathy, right, to her. But it doesn't also solve the bigger problem, that we've got a huge problem around employment. And this goes squarely, because it's been discussed right through, the issue of economic empowerment or broad-based economic empowerment from 94 onwards, in practical terms, has been narrow-based economic empowerment. So it has clearly benefited a few, and that is why we can safely say that the majority of people are absolutely struggling and appear to have no hope, and probably do have no hope. And we have to find a way to feel their pulse and understand what they're thinking and be in sync with all of them. So I thank you for that. I thank you for that call, but it's a really sad call that's got me thinking about maybe what we need to do on the show, about how can we actively find a way to be innovative, to narrow that unemployment gap, because we have to do just that. All right, I think there's maybe another. No, in fact, there's not another WhatsApp. Let's get to another huge issue, right? The Department of Health in Gauteng has confirmed that 41 children between 3 and 5 years old have been receiving medical treatment at Barra in Soweto after allegedly consuming rat poison, mistaking it for candy. Sure, let's find out more about that with Mzi Neti, who's the Deputy Director for Communicable Diseases in the Gauteng Health Department. Good chatting to you, MZ, thanks for your time.
Oh, okay. Thanks for having me. Actually, I thought MZ is Mzimasi.
Oh, okay. Sorry, we've got the shortened version here. Okay, Mzimasi, thanks for your time. So, give us an update on this. I mean, the allegations say children have been poisoned. They have they not?
Oh, okay. Thanks for that question. Here, what happened? We received a report from one of our hospitals that they received kids who have purportedly consumed a rat poison from the school. Then this morning, the provincial team and the district team and also the municipality conducted a visit to the school. And from when the team got there to the school, the information the team got was that actually at around 9 o'clock in the morning yesterday, a classroom teacher noticed pellet-like rats on the floor, right? And she tried to ask the learners, what happened? What are these? Who brought them? So the learners pointed to the learner who brought those pellets to the classroom. And on her investigation, found that some had already eaten, and they were thinking that these are candy because that's what they assumed the learners. So we're talking about children between the age of 4 to 5 years. Then she immediately also searched on the pockets and she found some of those pellets like rats on their pockets. Then she immediately called for help from other school teachers, and they referred. There were only 2 learners who actually showed. Okay, let me correct one thing here. It's not 41 learners. It's 39 learners who are affected.
Okay, 39.
The classroom is for. So the number of learners in the classroom are 41, but of the 41, 2 were absent yesterday. So only 39 were affected yesterday.
Okay,
so
what's their health now? Like, how are they feeling now? Because, I mean, these are young kids, ages of 3 to 5, right? Yeah.
Sure, yes. The kids were initially referred to a local clinic, then referred to Barra Hospital for further management. So at the hospital, some were observed and were found to be those were found to be fine, having no symptoms, were released to home. Only 17 were observed overnight. The 17 are those who claim to have eaten the actual bread pellets. But from today, the team also visited the hospital and they found that all the learners, so according to the doctors, they do not identify any abnormalities, and all the learners were discharged home.
Well, I'm glad for that. I mean, let's just go back very quickly before we wrap up. I mean, the actual cause here. I mean, if this issue is rat poison, I mean, like, somebody's to blame for this, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. The team that was investigating is with the governmental health partners from the municipality. So the team tried to visit the household of the child that brought those items at the school. Unfortunately, when they got there this noon today, the parent of that child was at the hospital, so there was no one at the household. So the team tomorrow will continue with the investigations as well, and also doing health education around the community and at the school. In fact, the urgent school. All the parents of the kids who are in the school will be called tomorrow also to give them education. Okay. We're also considering also to bring in the colleagues from within the metro. There's a pest control unit that also form part of the colleagues that will be joining.
Well, I tell you what, we need to keep an eye on that story. Mzimazi Neti, thanks for your time, Deputy Director for the Communicable Diseases in the Gauteng Health Department. I tell you what, if you're a parent and your child, 2 to 3 years old, has been hospitalized because of rat poison, sure, what would you think of that? There's some comments we've got. We also, someone saying on Gama saying from Bizani, we also had a George Brains Nkunu, rather, back in the day, a soccer star that is. And another one, Ashraf, really appreciate your work. Thank you for that. Another one, I was born on the 17th of December, 19. My name is 12 and my surname is 17. You've got to be joking. But there you are. 12, 17. Another one, National Pulse. Ashraf, the IEC announced Zuma will be on the ballot paper. Fine. Are they withdrawing their case to the Concord? No, they're not withdrawing it. They work separately. That means even if he loses the Concord case, or if the IEC loses it, right, or wins it, in fact, he would still be on the ballot sheet. Okay, then what happens next in terms of Parliament is another whole conversation completely, right? Finally, Ashraf, welcome back. Can you confirm with your team whether it's true that there's violence against foreign nationals in Mpumalanga from Temba and Rustenburg? Can't confirm it right now because I don't know any better. But let's look into that story. We'll certainly do that. That's the show, and as always, it's not just me. So I'm the captain of the team. There's a whole team led by head coach and a whole team of producers, right? So thanks to all of them. That's Temba and Lebo and Vusani and Patrick, all of them making up the team. But coming up next, it's the news. Then it's an hour of the business of business coming up. Goodbye.
Three suspects killed in Gauteng shootout and millions of rands in damage caused by KZN floods. Good evening. 3 suspects have been shot and killed during a shootout with a law enforcement multidisciplinary team at Chrisville, south of Johannesburg. It's reported that the team received information about the suspects who've been terrorizing people around the area and committing violent crimes. Hawk spokesperson Katlego Mukhale.
Upon receiving the information, it was operationalized, and when they arrived at the identified premises, they were met with fire. The team returned fire, and in the ensuing shootout, 3 of the suspects were fatally wounded and 3 others were apprehended. 2 unlicensed firearms were recovered from the scene.
In election news, the head of the ANC's National Executive Committee election team currently in KwaZulu-Natal, Zizi Kodwa, says the entire NEC will soon visit the province as the party is gearing up its election campaign. Several polls have indicated that support for the ANC in the province, which has the highest number of registered voters, has declined. Kodwa says the party is not worried but doesn't take any election for granted.
We're in a battlefield. When you're in a battle, you don't have many commanders. We're directed, we're being commanded. So all what we do here, that's why we call from the branches, from the regions here, is to make sure that there is only one message to all our commanders. These are troops that they are prepared to go out. So there's never been in the past, whether during the time of Tata Mandela, there's never been many centers of power. There's always been one message and one commander who can direct the soldiers.
The KwaZulu-Natal MEC for Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Bonisa Duma, says initial reports indicate that the damage caused by this weekend's flash floods is estimated at millions of rands. 5 people have died. The MEC visited areas on the province's south coast that were affected by heavy rains that began on the weekend in Margate.
We've already visited major shops, owners who are already affected, and we've given the form so that we could assist, because we are the current government, and already both municipalities have dispatched their team to assist. ATIA has done the same thing on spending the assignment on the issue of environmentalists who are going to assist us going forward. There is preliminary that is suggesting that it's going to go to millions. It means that national minister must just come closer to the process. We've already shared the information with the president as well, who's worried, who's also passed his condolences to the families, because for us this is a national outcry and everyone must just partake in the journey and assist.
The ANC Youth Leagues in the Chilputsa region in the Free State says it's enraged by allegations that a teacher sexually assaulted